Good evening. It being 7 p.m. or a little after, the planning board meeting will come to order. First item is a review of old and new business, the planner's report.
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay. Anything under active subdivision? Wall Street?
Morse.
Oh, yeah. Well, did we do planner's report? No? Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that. The only thing I wanted to bring up on planner's report is just to let you know that the 119 Morse Street project has been filed. So if anybody, I don't know if the planning board has any comments, but I know the hearing opens next Thursday night, so if we wanted to submit anything, there will be a continuance, of course. It's going to go on for several weeks or months, months really, because they only meet once a month. So if you want to take that on as a board and look at it, I know that they would appreciate comments, but
So that's for the zoning board?
yes.
Okay.
So that's in front of the zoning board next Thursday night.
See if they can. Okay. Thank you very much. And nothing under active subdivisions other than that?
No.
Okay. So under action items, we have some minutes from June 9th, 2022. Have they been reviewed? Has anybody?
I reviewed them.
So is there a motion to?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And an A&R plan for 32 North Grove Street?
So if you recall, Kevin, we looked at the subdivision. This is no change to frontage. It's a long skinny lot that you'll see in a moment. And the abutting property owner seeks to buy some of the rear land from his neighbor, her neighbor. So it doesn't change any of the frontage or access. And we looked at it with Barney over at the ZBA and also Scott Shippey, the building commissioner, and determined that it would be acceptable for signature. So it's this whole long lot, and this rear part is going to, I believe, that neighbor.
Which neighbor?
Yeah.
Michelle Devine.
Okay, yes.
And this will remain a non-buildable lot?
It is a non-buildable lot, yes.
I have no issues with it.
I have no issues.
Good. Wow.
No, I'm fine.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the A&R submitted.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Can we do it after? So it being, well, it's not.
It's not a public hearing, so I think we could start anytime on the Annette Road discussion.
Okay. We have a continued discussion for a special permit to Washington Street. I'm sorry, continued discussion on as-built plan, review and discussion for Coronet Road under Universal Automation. They did submit some information regarding lighting today, but I must say that I would not say this is a photometric plan.
Well,
It is- There is, but it's just for the front of the building. It doesn't show,
Exactly.
the property.
Exactly. And there's no lighting on the external of the property. It's just shining up onto the building.
Right, so I think they need to present us with a more complete plan.
I did speak to Mr. Sullivan about that today, and he was reaching out to his engineer and having appropriate plan drawn up showing what available lighting is available for the parking lot and if additional lighting would be needed.
Okay. And so based on previous conversations, there were certain conditions for approval of the minor modification. Those include to close off access to the rear of 31 Freedom Trail from the upper section of Annette Road, to install the fence separating the upper section of Annette Road from 31 Freedom Trail, to install a An amount of green giant arborvitaes that we need to discuss this evening, Thuja green giant, 6-foot height on both sides of the fence between Annette Road and 31 Freedom Trail. The site plan required 40 green giant arborvitae 6 feet high and 20 compact Hinoki false cypress 6 feet high at the rear of the property, but these were not installed with approval of the town site inspector due to the amount of ledge found on the site. In total, 68 trees should have been planted on the site, but only 21 are shown on the as-built plan. Number 4 is the lighting plan should be submitted showing the lighting for the limits of the site as discussed previously. Striping of the parking lot should be completed. I believe they have a date to do that this week. And cease use of the upper area of the lot currently used for storage until an application for the site plan approval is submitted and the portion of the property is approved. Conditions should be complied with by July 25th, when the temporary certificate of occupancy expires. Any conversation about any of that?
I was just curious, on the matter of the plantings, is it going to be the board's position that we're going to hold to those numbers? And if so, how's that going to be addressed with, if there are ledge issues on site?
I thought didn't Norm say before he left that it was, they didn't have to do, we were okay with them not planting all of them because of the ledge situation?
Well, it was more that the location, they were proposed along the back of the building, was not suitable due to that. I don't know that you want to hold to all of them, but certainly maybe you could substitute the location up to the area, use those trees to ensure that there's no access to 31 Freedom Trail. So I don't know exactly what you want to do on the numbers, but I would think you'd want robust planting to kind of close that up and restore some of it, but that's up to the board.
Go ahead.
Yep. No, I'm fine, thanks.
I mean, they certainly could submit a
Revised plan.
plan that shows us how many and where they would like to see them planted, and we can either approve or ask them to continue to add trees.
Yeah. I think there's more work to be done before we can do anything with this.
Well, do you think it would be reasonable to allow them to perhaps, using the term robust, do robust planting up in that area to get it going, and then at that point, visit it actually in person, as opposed, I would just hate to wait, he only has a month on the TCO, and so I just think it's probably good to get things going,
Yes.
and then if you find it's not sufficient, you kind of
always
have
add
trees in
more.
the bank,
Yeah.
and it may be that he doesn't have to do all of them, or maybe, unless the board has other areas you want them to be.
And I don't have a problem with that approach. I'm just a little bit leery, based on background, to kind of wing this one, if you
Right.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
I do agree that I think we need, if not a revised plan, then at least something that is on paper that can be formally agreed to, before all is said and done.
And executed upon, because there's been stuff agreed to prior that has not been done.
But I do, if you think it'd be better to move forward, at least get something going there, that sounds reasonable.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem with
Yeah, I mean, I think we could talk to the applicant about it too, is, just get those arborvitaes or something, create a couple rows of them even, and maybe where the fence, have them supplement the fence. And, those could be a nice barrier, and they also ensure that vehicles won't be able to come and go. So I don't know the exact dimensions, but, I know my arborvitaes are pretty close together, and it creates, they're 22 years old now, and that is a solid wall of arborvitaes, but, I wouldn't want to claim to be a landscape architect on that.
And I've also had issues with ledge, and instead of digging, you put a mound and you plant that way, so.
Right.
True.
Well, the area we're talking about has a fair amount of trees there, so I don't know if it'd be too much of an issue with planting. I think that the Green Giants, because the Patriots, the craft group was gonna use them, I think it's 12 feet apart. We can double
Seems-
check.
Yeah, that seems a
far.
little,
Well,
Yeah.
these are 6 foot minimum, and they go 3 foot a year.
Those are the ones we used up on the parking lots for the Walpole berm, I believe, right?
Right, and we can just very easily see what they had.
well, again, I think on those ones, the green giant ones, we were focusing on height as well. At this
Right.
one, I don't know if we're looking so much for height as the horizontal, you want to
Instant
kind of create,
Right.
a screen, because he's really only screening himself. It's more of a barrier and creating like a visual screen, but not necessarily.
Vehicular barrier.
So And then I don't know what kind of fence you're thinking of, or what Mr. Sullivan would propose. That's another sort of discussion that maybe should be had. Brian, do you have any, you want to come up to the microphone? And do you have any suggestions or thoughts on what you're thinking up there?
When we walked through, what I was thinking to put out, when we walked through with the planning board, you guys said that you didn't want a fence, actually. You said you wanted a tree. I think Gary was the one that said a fence wouldn't work there. He said, put some trees up. We're only talking an 8-foot spot here, right, to block off? It's 8 foot wide?
It was all of that, if, probably close to 10 or 12, I think, wasn't it?
Maybe 10 foot wide? Yeah, 8 to 10 feet wide. I mean, it's not like it's a big area. You're talking a path that we're driving across that was 8 or 10 feet wide. The rest of it, as Ron had pointed out, is already heavily treed.
I think our goal is to make it impassable. Is that the goal?
Yes.
Because, I mean, it's his home and his business. He doesn't care from a visual sight line, you know? So what makes it impassable?
Right, I mean, quite frankly, one tree in the middle of it makes it impassable, right? It's an 8 foot wide path with a tree in the middle, makes it impassable. I mean, three trees would be, on an 8 foot wide span, would make it impassable.
I mean, I think you could also stagger them. You could do three or
That's
four.
what I said, I could do
Three or four trees, and then,
three in like a diamond shape, that way,
yeah, a couple rows of them, and then it kind of restores back to something.
I'm flexible whether it's trees or a fence. It just needs to be impassable.
Yeah, you know our intent, so let's just,
Whichever way, I'm not wedded to trees or a fence.
I think from what I heard, because I was not on the sidewalk, that you were concerned that fence section could be taken down.
fence
or,
sections can always be removed very easily and replaced very easily, so.
So as long as we, accomplish what we want, which is to prevent any vehicular traffic there, I think the board will be satisfied. We can, you can plant, we can take a look, and as long as we're satisfied, that'll be the end of that. If we feel you need to add some more, we'll ask you to add some more.
okay, that's fine. I can plan something, you can either come back and review it, I can send you pictures, whatever
Great.
you'd rather.
And what about, Brian, sorry, do you have thoughts on that side parcel? Do you think you will apply for use of that? I know you would
I
like.
did, I was gonna talk with Bill and work on a plan and figure out what we want to do before, and then we'll come back and apply for that.
Okay,
Right now, we have stuff on it, but waiting for they told us don't put anything overnight on the parking lot for a month, so the month is almost up, and then we'll move everything off.
When is the month up?
We had it paved on the Monday before,
Memorial Day.
the Monday before Memorial Day.
Okay.
So it's almost, it's another week, they're striping it.
So by July 1st, everything should be out of there.
Yes, and they're striping it either tomorrow or Monday, so they
Perfect.
said if it didn't rain at all today, they'd do it, if not, Monday they could.
Very good.
And you guys inspected the fence and the sign, I think that was the other items for the dumpster.
Right.
so the outstanding items are the lighting, closing off.
Yeah, but I reached out to the lighting engineer and told him I need to do the parking lot in front of the building.
Yeah, and the side, like, we just really need to know, what's spilling off-site and what's
Right, we
serving
only
the
have, we have
parking
the lights
lot.
across the front of the building, we didn't put the poles, so we were gonna have the front of the building done for light stuff.
Right, but your mapping needs to show what the spillage is on all sides. It's got to be a full, complete one.
Yeah, we don't have any side,
Exactly.
we only have the lights on the front of the building, we don't have them on the sides.
Right, but he knows he knows what we'll want. He should do a photometric plan, and even if it just says 0, it just should show the
Right.
entire perimeter of the thing, just so everybody will be satisfied that there's no spillage, that's all.
Okay,
Brian, when they do the photometric, I'd also like to know what the spillage is on the existing lighting, how far above that building is shining. Because we do have bylaws restricting how much light you can throw up into the sky.
okay, I'll ask him.
Which could be a minor deal, like putting a shield on them so they can't
Yeah,
too high, but I want to see that on the
Yeah,
photometric.
if you ask for a complete photometric, you should get all that.
okay, I went back to him, said I need a parking lot photometric.
Okay.
I did first the light, you said you wanted the front lights, I did those, so now I'll do the parking lot one.
Okay.
Yes,
Very
we
good.
need a full photometric starting to shut off the thing and then the access. Then when by July 1st, all the stuff that's in that parcel on the side needs to be in the parking lot, and nothing should be up there.
Right, unless the planning board
Unless you
reviews
come
and
in front of
approves.
us for.
Right, and I said, if I do anything, I'll have Bill submit something.
Okay, I think that was it, right?
Cover it all?
We're good.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, all set?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're not going to stay?
Anything else we can discuss while we're waiting for 7:30?
We got 10 minutes.
Well, for the people listening, I went this evening to the ribbon cutting for a new bakery in town. It's uptown, and it's called Sweetness and Honey. And it was a soft opening this evening, but their grand opening, I believe, is Sunday. So their specialties are macarons, which I had my first macaron, and 2 more after that today. Highly recommend. So it's very exciting to have a bakery in town. It's a local woman from Foxborough or living in Foxborough doing this. So it's hopefully the community will come out and support her business. So that's quite exciting. I don't know if you've heard that there's a Vietnamese restaurant supposed to be going into where Sal's and Mal's was. They've decided to close. And so the Vietnamese restaurant got their permits back in April. So we've all been waiting, and there's not a lot going on over there. So I actually called, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, and spoke to the woman. And like many people, they're dealing with equipment delays. So their hoods and whatnot. So they are, I believe, paying rent. They're still planning on coming to Foxborough, but it's just been, unfortunately, as we all know, supply chain issues. So, but we do believe that that restaurant will be opening hopefully soon. She was very excited to hear that we were interested. And so that'll be another new restaurant uptown.
Awesome. Any update on the opening of Shoveltown?
Yeah, well, I saw Frank today, and they got their common vic and their liquor licenses the other night at the Selectmen, so that their permits at the local level are ready. They too are victims of supply chain issues, and I believe they're waiting for a transformer, something or other with a transformer from National Grid. So he's hoping September, unfortunately. It's a ways off, but they're working fast and furiously over there. I also can say that this morning at the Cocasset River Park, there was a ribbon cutting for the community pool. It's been closed for a couple years, and the Recreation Department has been working really hard on that, and through some ARPA funds was able to restore it. They cut down a bunch of trees over at the park, so there's a lot more sun, so it's not as sort of dark and shady. The pool's getting a heater, because apparently the pool was frigid, and so no one really wanted to swim in it. So as of today, the pool, well, it's just about open. I know they're offering family memberships. I think it's like $175 or $125 a year for the families to go, and then they're offering senior memberships. I know that there's I think the senior memberships are only $25 a person for the summer. There's a water aerobics class for seniors, so it's a kind of a great community effort. They're getting ready they're restoring some of the cabins, and it'll be like a snack bar and a changing room, and it was pretty great. I went up there today to see it, and so it's an exciting thing. You know, I think the kids, I know the Booth playground kids are going to the pool to swim. And the fact that it has a heater, everybody's pretty happy about, because I guess it was really bad how cold the water was. So that's coming online, and I was also at the booth today, and that's a booming camp over there, very successful. So today was sort of a day where I got to see some of the recreation stuff in action. So. It's really great community amenities being run really well. There was also the farmers market. I know there were a couple cancellations today, so it's still small. There's not a lot of produce yet, so that's part of the problem. And there's been a couple, COVID hits and knee problems, so different things. But I know that they're really doing a lot of work up at the farmers market. I brought some cookies for later if anybody needs a snack. And I had a night of cookies apparently. But they were doing like painting in the park for kids. So there's like also, in addition to you know, the stuff you can buy up there, they're doing cultural activities. So if anybody hasn't been to the farmer's market, it's pretty cool. And then it dovetails right into the concert on the Common, so.
Yeah, again, just getting back to Sweetness and Honey, I was there as well tonight, along with a bunch of other townsfolk and also town officials. And she does have a standard thing of macarons and cupcakes and cookies and things, but she does make custom cakes for people for birthdays and weddings and things like that. So if people want something special made, she can do that for you as well. And the store looks great. It's very fun and bright and nice. It's
Yeah, I
really-
noticed on the menu too, there was coffee and whatnot, so I think,
Yeah,
you know,
iced
people
teas
could go
and-
in there and have a cup of coffee and have a macaron if you haven't one. When it's not a macaroon, coconut, no, it is a macaron, so.
It's a little French cookie.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
We'll expect you, Kevin, to bring some to the next meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's see, what else? We have a couple more minutes till we can start. 5 minutes of filibustering. What else is going on? We have the Lieutenant Governor coming out next week for an event. We're going to be holding it, I believe, at the Community Farm Stand because it's closest to Walnut Street. There is some legislation that would include the funding of the Walnut Street signal, and they're trying to drum support. We're not sure that it's getting any legs, unfortunately, at the state level. You know, the governor is ending his term, and it's hard to get a lot done right now. But they're coming to Foxborough, and since it does include full funding for the signal, we're behind it all the way. It's a long shot, but we're going to go up there with the Lieutenant Governor for a photo op, and maybe miracles will happen. We did learn, one of the steps when we were applying for Congressman Auchincloss's money was that they wanted the Walnut Street intersection to be on the state transportation improvement plan. So I started that sometime, I think, at the spring, and we heard this week that it is now on the state. It made it through the project review committee at MassDOT, and so now we, I believe, are on the STIP, which is a good thing. It doesn't mean it's going to get funded anytime soon. It just means we're in the queue at the state level. So if you get on the TIP, that's usually for more private-related projects, and if you get on the STIP, that's more of the state-type projects. So now I think we're on the STIP, which is a good thing, but again, it doesn't mean money's going to come to it. We are having a lot of frustration with that. We got $50,000 for the Central Street parking lot, which is behind all the businesses on Central Street, but that legislation has not been signed. So again, we're having all these, you know, we got $2 million from Auchincloss for Walnut Street, and that was never passed. So we're getting a lot of nibbles, but to actually get the bites and to get the things signed has been a bit of a challenge. But we are working it really hard, and I think, you know, there was a Walnut Street meeting last week with the development team, and the neighbors were all invited. I did not go to it because I'm supporting the zoning board, so I don't really want anything to do with the development side. But I think the meeting went fairly well, and I heard from some neighbors that they are actually pleased at the sort of sensitivity. They were able to keep the building at 3 stories, they're not 4, and they pulled it away from North High Street. So, and just for clarification, this would be Walnut Street. In addition to the signal, it would be 200 units of all affordable senior housing. So it would be through, in working with the Housing Authority, every unit would be affordable at varying levels. So it's something that obviously is desperately needed in the community and everywhere. They will be applying for local preference, which means that the first round would be 70% Foxborough residents. And my understanding is it's income limited, but it's not asset limited. So it has to do with your monthly income as opposed to like if you sold a house, that wouldn't necessarily work against you. It's more what your income is. So if you're living on Social Security or a limited basis. So it truly is affordable. There's more details coming out. I don't want to speak like an expert, but it's something that, you know, there's a huge demand for affordable housing, but this is actually for all seniors. So that's something that we all know is really hard to find right now.
Well done, Paige.
Got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And I believe as of today, we have a local inspector, an interim local inspector. The building department has been with just a single inspector. With the stadium project, it's been a lot. You know, they brought in something like $1.6 million in permit fees from the stadium in the past few months. So that's been Scott, our new building commissioner, who started January 24th. He's been on his own doing all of this. So we've worked real hard to try to get an interim inspector, and I believe as of today, that's happening, and he will start, I think it's January 13th.
January?
July 13th. I keep saying January. I don't want summer over, but yeah, so I think it's July 13th he'll be starting, which will be desperately needed help for the building department, because they've been out straight.
Why didn't they hire a private inspector, which they did for Patriot Place? As I
Well, they
recall?
have construction control, but a building commissioner is generally the one that has to oversee it. So they do have a private entity doing the reviews and whatnot, but he has to be out there a lot for the steel and whatnot. And just so you know, they did approve nighttime
Yep.
work hours
Saw
on
that.
that, so. Yeah.
1 minute.
7:30 on my clock.
Yep.
Is it?
There you go.
Very good. So, it being on or about 7:30 PM, public hearing for a special permit, 2 Washington Street, construction of a 224,750 plus or minus gross square foot warehouse office building for Rock Point Fund Acquisitions LLC. Just so everyone is aware this evening, you may have seen some information posted in the rear of the auditorium. So, because many of you may not attend meetings like this on a regular basis, I just want to kind of set the ground rules for everyone so they understand. The planning board, I will open the public hearing, which I've just done. The applicant, the gentlemen and ladies who will be sitting at the table across from us, will make a presentation to the planning board. The board will then have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments based on the presentation. And then I will open it up to the public for comment. Members of the public must first be recognized by me and then go up to the microphone before speaking. Speakers should state their name and address for the record. Speakers must direct all comments to the chair and the board. Any questions for the applicant go through me. Due to time constraints, please avoid repetitive comments. I mean, once we hear it once or twice, we don't need 20 people to repeat basically the same concerns or commentary regarding the project or traffic or whatever the item might be. We may limit speakers to no longer than 5 minutes because there's a number of people who are here tonight. We want to give as many people an opportunity to speak as possible and get their point of view across. And the meeting is being broadcast live, so people who are not here will have every opportunity to do it. I'm just asking everybody to please be civil, be respectful from this side of the table and the people in the audience. Last week was a little bit excitable, and we're not going to do that tonight. We're not going to accept that. Anybody who can't behave in a calm and civil manner will be, asked to stop. If they don't, they'll be escorted out. So believe me when I tell you that we do this a lot. You people may not see this a lot. The bottom line here really is that the applicant is entitled to make their presentation and to tell us why they think their project will be good for the town of Foxborough. They are guaranteed those rights both by local zoning and the United States Constitution. Under the Fifth Amendment, we cannot just deny someone their rights to develop their property. It would be called an unfair taking. So, that doesn't mean that we do not take into full consideration the concerns of people who are abutters or near abutters to any project in town. We will do our very best, and that's a commitment, to protect your rights as well as give them the opportunity to make the development if the board sees fit to approve it. So feel confident in the fact that this is not a rubber stamp. It never has been, and it won't be. Things that we hear that we think are good and positive, we'll react good and positive to. Things that we think are a concern or an issue or don't belong, you'll be hearing that as well. And we will take into full consideration the concerns and the questions and comments that you make here. So with that being said, I'm going to allow the people who are representing the applicant to begin.
Good evening. Frank Spillane, this is Spillane here in Foxborough. With me here,
You pull the
They
microphone.
can't, I think you need to pull the mic closer.
can you hear me?
No.
Attorneys Frank Spillane with Spillane here in Foxborough. With me here this evening is William Buckley of Bay Colony Group, and also Jason Adams with McMahon Transportation Engineers and Planners. Also with us is representatives of Griffith Properties LLC, who are partnering with Rockport Fund Acquisitions in developing the property. This evening, we're requesting a special permit under Section 316, Table 3.1, uses, Group D8, truck terminals, general warehousing, public warehousing, and Section 442, building heights, requesting a building height of 42 feet where 40 feet is allowed. Again, the use is allowed warehousing with a special permit granted by a planning board. And the uses are both common and beneficial to the area, as indicated by the use being allowed by right with 5 buildings located on Panish Road. And the building height of 70 feet is allowed within the special use permit, but only 40 feet within the limited industrial district. This property is within 3 zones. The front portion is in with the S1 special use district. Behind it is the limited industrial district, and a very small portion of it is in the residential district. None of the land in the residential district is part of the development. But again, the height of 70 feet is allowed within the special use district and 40 within the limited industrial. The building will be 42 feet in height, which is allowed by special permit by this board under Section 10.4. A waiver is also being requested under Section 644, the screening and buffer requirements to allow the retention of the existing natural density vegetated area and topography, which is a lot of it is wetlands, along the west side line, which abuts commercial property and other wetlands. At this time, I'm just going to ask Mr. Buckley to go over the civil and the landscaping.
Excuse me. Sorry.
You have to pull the microphone.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group, and I'm here representing the applicant. What I'd like to do is very quickly walk the board through the project and discuss the different elements of it. So what we've put up here is a rendering of the project, and I think everybody has a copy of the rendering. And everybody's familiar with this site, I think, commonly known as Dimitri's, Olive and Mint, now Funway. And what I've taken most of the existing condition off, but what I've done is I've left on an outline of the building so you can kind of see where the existing building is. And then I know right about here, because of the grading, this is about the area where the existing parking is currently goes or falls off to the rear to the south. So this is a 30.5 acre parcel of land, and it contains a 56,000 square foot facility that was built or started to be built back in the 60s. It also contains an outdoor recreation facility, Funway, which takes up about maybe 2.3 acres of the site. The site contains currently about 510 parking spaces. And what's proposed is that everything I just mentioned is going to be removed. So all of the building will be removed, all of the parking that's currently on it will be removed, and the Funway facility will also be removed. And what we're proposing is the construction of a 224,750 square foot warehouse. It's a 1-story facility. About 7.5% of it will be office space, and that's an estimate now because we don't have a tenant, but that's a good estimate when you look at this size warehouse. And we're proposing 197 parking spaces. So the automobile parking will be located over here on the west side and the south side. And the entrance will be off of Washington Street. There are currently two entrances off of Washington Street, one to the south and one to the north of the facility. The north one will be eliminated, and this south one will be approximately in the same location as the existing access to the Demetrius. And what we're proposing is, so this building will be, I think it's 300 feet back from the roadway. And what you'll do is it'll be single entrance. The roadway is 32 feet wide. Coming in, this is an island. I know it's hard to see, but this is an island down here, so it'll be right turn in, right turn out, which is in compliance with the Mass DOT standard. This Mass DOT will have jurisdiction over this access point. And you'll be able to come up the driveway and then go right as you're coming up. And this is where automobiles will be parked. And then you go left, and this will be the truck parking area. There are 38 docks along the east side of the facility. So they're located, and there'll be a concrete pad, as is normal when you see that. We're also proposing a total of 121. These are truck parking areas, but really they'll probably end up being trailers, and that's what we've sized them for. They're not sized for trucks, they're sized for trailers. They all have, it's hard to see, I know, but they have little concrete pads for their feet so they don't go through the asphalt. And they'll be located in this area here and here. The site itself, if you were standing on Route 1, it's as I said the other day at the conservation, it's a little bit deceiving. This is about elevation 255 feet out here, 255 feet above sea level. And it goes back to the rear of it, this is the area of the R40 that Frank was just talking about. That's about a 30-foot rise from there to there. And then over here in this wetland, which is over here on the southeast side, that's about elevation 270. The wetlands have been delineated by the Conservation Commission, and we've also had our first hearing with them to go over the project. Actually, a very small portion of the project falls under their jurisdiction. This blue line is the 100-foot buffer zone, and that's really all that falls under them. So it was a relatively straightforward meeting. They did not close it because we didn't ask for it to be closed. We wanted everything to run in parallel. I'm going to talk about runoff here, stormwater, which is always a concern. So the site this is kind of a peak along the back here, but it pitches in this direction, and then it pitches a little bit in this direction, and for the most part, everything's going toward Route 1. So what we've done is the stormwater system will be mainly 2 above-ground stormwater basins. In this area here, which is, if you can picture it, this is where the batting cage is now and where the south side of the racetrack is. So where the batting cage is and there, and it's against the property line where the driving range used to be. That would be a stormwater basin there. And then down here, right against Route 1, this is the front of the building. I know it's hard to see, but this right here is the building. So you can see it's in the building, and then in the driveway that comes in off the north side. So there are 2 stormwater basins. Everything on the site is going to go in those directions. So they'll be captured through a drainage system. This is the east side, which will capture the runoff from the rear parking lot, all of this parking lot, and then this area here will go into this basin. And then over here on the west side, this parking lot, the drainage will go this way, again, into that basin. The building itself has a separate drainage system. It's a low impact development element, and what it is we separate the runoff from the roof, from the driveway and parking lot runoff, because the roof runoff is considered clean, quote unquote. So it doesn't require pre-treatment. So in low impact development, which is one of the things that the town's regulations ask us to use where possible, that is one of the major elements. Some of the other things we're doing for stormwater runoff is 2 things the town normally looks at, or anybody looking at, is total suspended solids, in the runoff and phosphorus. So the way we've handled that is two ways. The first is where all the catch basins are, except for these two out here in the middle of this parking lot. All the catch basins here, along here, and along here have what's called a tree box filter. And if you don't remember what a tree box filter is, if you can picture London Estates, the island down the middle, those concrete structures. And what happens is the runoff runs down the gutter, goes into it, there's a mixture in there, it's a bioretention mix, it cleans it, and then it infiltrates into the ground at London Estates. Up here, the bottom of the catch basin will have a separate perforated pipe with a tree box filter that will put the runoff into the catch basin. So each catch basin has one or two tree box filters, and what those things do is they will clean the runoff to at least 80% total suspended solids, which is the standard. And then it will also clean it to 60% phosphorus removal, which is the standard. That's only the first leg of the treatment train. Then it goes into the catch basin, which takes another 25% off. Then it goes into the infiltration basin, which takes another 80% off. So the water quality here is far beyond the 80% standard and far beyond what's happening today. Pretty much everything just runs into catch basins and goes out into Route 1 and ends up down by McDonald's. Over here on this side, we can't do that because we have no curb to put the tree box filter in. So over here, what we have is that we have a separate element up in this area here, and it's a water quality element that it cleans the runoff. And water comes into it, it cleans it, and it cleans it to at least a 50% total suspended solids removal. Catch basin's 25%, and another 50% from the water quality inlet goes into the infiltration basin, another 80%. Again, it gets it up above around that 90% number, well above. Same down below here. All the catch basins down at the bottom of the hill near Route 1 have tree box filters, catch basins, and go into the infiltration basin. One of the things I should mention is currently all the runoff, I think I mentioned it, all the runoff is tied into Route 1 through an 18-inch drain up here on this side of structure. And since that was done, Mass DOT has eliminated that, allowing that, just at least District 5, it will not. So what we have to do is retain all of the runoff on the site, and that's why those basins are the size and depth that they are, so that it's designed to retain all of the runoff and infiltrate it on the site.
Bill, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Just a
Sure.
quick question. So in this forward infiltration basin, the one by Route 1, is that simply picking up runoff down the roadway?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a peer review from the town's peer review consultants, environmental partners. We looked at their comments. I don't see any issue with any of them. I'm sure there's going to be a couple that I will go back and forth on because we're engineers and we just have to do that. But there's nothing there that is going to do any major changes to it. One of the things that was commented was, as I mentioned, these basins are all in areas where there's currently either structures or facilities. We can't go in there with machines and start digging it up. Just can't. And if you recall, we had the same issue with the fire station. So between the fire station and what's going to be the new residential building, there's going to be a parking lot and drainage underneath. Well, at the time, that was where the garages were. So we couldn't go in there and dig. The board gave a condition that before a building permit would be issued, that we would have to go in there and confirm our estimate of what the runoff, what the soil conditions and groundwater would be, which is what we did. In this particular case, we're going to have to do we're going to have to ask you to make the same comment. One of the things we did do, though, last week, although I haven't seen the data yet, is we're doing borings out here for the rest of the building. We asked the geotechnical to do a boring down here because they're digging a hole this big, and they could be more precise and not damage stuff as opposed to an excavator. We've asked them to dig a test pit down here, or do a boring down here, and do a boring up here, and at least give some indication of what we could find there, although I would not use borings as I just wouldn't use them as a be-all and end-all. I want to see the soil, I want it opened up. Let me talk a minute here about some of the other utilities. The site will be served by a water line on Route 1. There's a 12-inch water line that runs, it's a Foxborough line that runs up Route 1, goes down whatever that Walpole Street is, Perry Drive, and then down Panis Road. And actually, I don't know if the board recalls, but when 45 and 35 Panis Road were permitted, the water department came and asked my client, hey, can we run a water line through your property out to Willis Lane, and then they'll connect it out to Beach Street, complete the loop, because that was one of the areas in town that the water department was afraid of because of the big, long dead end. We allowed that, and so we don't foresee any issues with water. We had a flow test run out here, and I'll recall the numbers, but it's more than adequate to service a building like this. One thing that's odd about this site, on Route 1 in Foxborough, but it's serviced by sewer. So several years ago, Mr. Panagopoulos, who owned the facility at the time, approached the town of Walpole and worked out a deal with them to allow sewerage, allow him to tie his building into sewerage, into the Walpole sewer. So at his expense, he paid for that, gave Walpole a nice fee, and then he paid to connect the sewer line. He went across Route 1, down Route 1, cross-country, and tied into there. So they have an agreement. This site will be served by sewer. I think the agreement was like 13,000 gallons per day. This facility is going to use about 10% of that because it's a warehouse. You think about it, what was a warehouse use as compared to a function hall, restaurant, funway facility. So this site will be tied into sewer. It will be tied into municipal sewer through Walpole, tied into municipal water through Foxborough. And let me talk a little bit about landscaping. Unfortunately, Bill Brown Sardiner, couldn't be in here tonight. We knew that. He was going to Zoom in, but then when the meeting got changed, that went out the window. So he gave me an outline he wants me to use, and I will do my best to talk to it. See if I can get this up here better. So you have the overall site plan. This is just, again, a rendering that he put together. If you have the sheets, it's sheets L1.0, the sheet L1.4. And in addition, we gave you a separate book of the plantings that show, what exactly the plantings look like, which is great because I certainly couldn't describe them. So this is the proposed landscape plan. So we wanted to highlight how the site is. So you can see the black dashed line, that is the property line. And it goes around the outside here. This heavy green is the buffer that will be there after construction. So the heavy green is what is there currently and what is not going to be disturbed by construction. And then the lighter green is going to be some type of landscaping by us, either plantings, trees, or just grasses, depending on the location. So we're preserving a minimum of 40 feet of existing vegetation over here along the west lot line. At its closest point, this, and I should have mentioned it in my presentation, but the parking lot is 100 feet off the property line. The minimum, the requirement in the S1 zone for a commercial buffering a residential, so the buffer requirement is 20 feet. 20. We're 100 feet from the property line, our property line, to the edge of the edge of the paving. And that is along there. Along the southern side here, it's a little less. This is 70 feet to the property line from the edge of the pavement. But what you can't see here, and I'll show it to you again on my other plan, there's actually 2 parcels of land down here that are labeled owner unknown and buffer parcel. So those are not ours. They're owner unknown, we don't know. I'm not gonna guess, but I could hazard a guess who owns them, but we don't. So this is our property line. So that's approximately another 70 feet. So from the closest residential property line over here along Meadowview to the parking lot is about 140 feet. To the edge of the grading or the edge of where the landscaping is going to be is about, again, to the closest residential property line is about 110 feet. So I just want to point out some of these distances as we're talking about it.
Bill? What
Yes.
is- What is, if I could ask a question,
Yes.
what is over to the right that looks like a little road?
This?
Yes,
So there's actually a path through there. So there's a path.
a walking path?
Yeah, you
Like
can walk.
Or a cart path?
Is it a cart path?
It was a cart path. It was probably this was an old farm. So this was all part of Panis Road and, 35, 45 Panis, all of that, and it was an old farm. And if you go out there, there's still all kinds of farm machinery, pieces of equipment laying out there. That's an old farm path. It used to go from there all the way out to Panis Road. It's been cut off now because of the new construction over there on Panis Road.
Okay, so that little half circle on the right, that's Panis?
No, that's not even close.
Okay.
I can show that to you.
But it's not water, it's a piece
No.
of land.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
just,
Okay.
it's all wet back there. Let me go back here to give you a better. Let me give you, that's a better rendering. So this is 35 Panis. You can see the building isn't even on here because of the wetlands. So we're bordering mostly on the wetlands.
And where's that path? If you could just use your,
It is, I think it's right, let's see.
Side of the parking lot,
yeah, I think it's half in the parking lot. Okay,
where the trailers are, about
It's
midway.
right in
Yeah.
Yeah,
here.
okay, thank you. Is there, in terms of, you've talked about the distance, is there a berm? Is there?
Yeah, so let me just bear with me for one sec.
Sure.
So the zoning requires 6-foot high, so it requires a 20-foot buffer, 6-foot high trees, 6 feet on center, where you are, residential is buffering commercial. That's the zoning requirement. So what we've done here, that's approximately 170 plants. If you measure there to there against the residential areas, measure that distance, it's approximately 170 plants. So what we did is we took that number and we said, okay, we're not going to put up a wall of evergreens. What we wanted to do is do a combination of evergreens, flowering trees, deciduous trees, and berms. So along the edge here, it's hard to figure it out, but if you, again, look at your landscape plan, but along this edge right here, from approximately here down to here, we have a berm. And that berm is anywhere from 5 to 11 feet high. Approximately, again, here to here, 5 to 11 feet high above the parking lot. And on that berm, you can see here, and again, I know that it's tough, but the dark colored trees are evergreens, the light green are deciduous, and the yellow colors are flowering trees. And again, on the landscape plan, it actually has a code that tells you what they are, and you have the book that shows. There's other shrubs and stuff planted around the building, but those really, I don't think the board is as concerned about as along the edges.
And that side, Bill, that's just, there's no truck parking along
No, the
this
west
or
side.
this, west or
Right.
south. There's no, along the back as well. There's
No.
no truck parking. That's, the expectation is that's car parking for the office space. That'll represent, you said about possibly about 75%.
Yes, 7.5%.
7.5,
It is,
sorry.
that's correct, and I'll just say that, during our design phase, when you're in that design development phase, you have the developer, you have me, Frank, architect, contractor, and salesman. So the salesmen are always looking for the max. But one of the things that, one of the initial designs had was they had truck docks. They had truck, not docks, but truck entrances down in that end there. And we just said, no, it's not acceptable. We know we want to keep those as far away from the residences as possible. Another one of the early thoughts was that it would be have truck docks on both sides. I forget what that's called, the term for it. Again, we said, no, that's not a good idea. Let's try and keep vehicles, cars over here, residents and trucks as far away as possible. And actually, in here, if you, say this is the closest truck dock, and then down in this area here is the property line, but this might be the closest residential line. That distance right there is about 340 feet. And you can see a lot of it is woods. So we're using the same number of trees, but we're arranging them informally. All the evergreen trees are 6 foot high, and all the deciduous trees are 2 to 2.5 inch caliper. That's kind of a standard under your subdivision control regulations. So I'd like to show you something else. Was when we had our meeting with the professional staff. Let me go back to this for a sec. See the A, B, and C. So this is 5 Tucker, B is between 1 and 3 Tucker, and C is down around 26 Meadowview. So if you kind of keep that in mind as I'm going to show you these next
26 minutes.
renderings. Okay, and you have those on your renderings. So what Brown Sardina did is they took, we went down there, we took a movie along the street, just driving along the street and looking in backyards and what's there now, and tried to replicate it also as far as elevations go. So we look at, for example, this is A, so that's the end of Tucker. That elevation of that home is at approximately elevation 269. The floor, the ground around it is what I'm talking about. So in that area there, so you're kind of looking to the right of the house. You can see what happens here is the grade is going up. In this area here, it goes up to 284 to 292. There's actually a bump over here somewhere. And then our berm is at elevation 280. So this is what it would look like today if it was installed today and the trees that we were proposing were put in. And you can see them in the back there. There's trees already here now. These are trees now. But you can see in the back, you can kind of see them. These are the same size, what they would be on the day they were planted. And then the next.
In that situation, it's the tree,
Yeah.
that the house is right there, the gray, is that the house?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then you can see the building in the back, that's gray too. So that would be the actual height of the building. This would be, sorry. This would be what it would look like after 10 years. So you're looking at, you see the growth has gone, in the back there has gone up because the trees have started to grow up. And again, let me go back. There's initial. There's 10 years. I know that's a long time, but 10 years is initial. So that would be the area, and the A. This is B, which is between 1 and 3 Tucker. So those houses are at approximately elevation 284. The topography in this corridor is 280 to 293. So you can see it's more level, which what's back there. And you can see the building back there. Again, there's a berm back there. It's not as pronounced as the berm along the left, as the other berm, but it's still pretty pronounced. It's elevation 286. That berm elevation 286, and again, it has 6-foot evergreens and other trees on top of it. And it should be noted that the floor of the building is 275. So the building is down 11 feet. If you were standing there, it's down 11 feet from that berm. So it creates kind of a berm in itself. And again, this is 10-year growth. Initial installation, 10-year growth. We go to the next one. This is C. So this is around 226 Meadowview. And again, this home is at approximate elevation 276, which is about the same elevation as the building. The finished floor of this building is 275. So the building is, Meadowview in this area is about 276. The finished floor of the building is about 275. And again, it's approximately 2. And the berm back there is about anywhere from 283 to 290. And again, the building is anywhere from 8, 15 feet down. So it's on the left side, it's 8 feet down. And as you go more to the right, it goes deeper into the ground. So the building is depressed in the back there. And the reason for that is because from the front of that building to the back of the building is about a 20-foot elevation differential. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to balance the cuts and fills back there and, make everything work. So that is, that's our landscape and my inadequate discussion of that. And I'm sorry again, Bill could not be here. There's a landscape, there's a lighting plan in your packet. We did an overall photometric plan. There's sheets L 2.0 to 2.4. And I'll just talk about that. What we've done is we have a combination of lights. So we have pole lights coming up the driveway. We have pole lights along the left side here, pole lights here, and then some pole lights along the outside. The pole lights, the fixtures are 25 feet high. They have, they're LED and they're dark sky compliant. What does that mean?
Can you just tell us what page
Page
that's
again.
on?
Sure.
It's LT, I'm sorry, yeah, it's L 2.0, so it's right in the back. L 2.0 to 2.4,
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
sorry. And if you look at L 2.4, that's the lighting detail. You can see the pole, and you can see the type of light it is. It's an LED light, it's 25. I think a regular pole in the
Bill.
town is 32 feet. Yes,
It was out of order, we couldn't find
I'm
it.
sorry.
No worries.
And then around the front of the building here, we have 16-foot high, I think they're 16-foot high poles. And again, what we're trying to do is to make the smallest pole possible. And with the LED lighting is designed to light down. We have lighting on the building because from the front of the building or from the face of the building to like the back of a parking lot is about 70 feet. It's actually a little bit more than 70 feet. So we need some lighting on the building, both for code reasons and to get the illumination that needs done.
Is that in the back or the front, the wall packs?
Both. They're around all the sides of the building. So if you look at that 2.4 plan, you can see the wall pack there
Yeah.
too. So the wall pack it's not a wall pack that it's open. It's not a wall pack that's open. Again, it's shining straight down. It comes out of the building, shines straight down. I know that we had some problems with wall packs over on Panis. This is not like those wall packs. They shine straight down. And there's a lighting plan that is a photometric plan that was done, again, 2.0 to 2.3. You can see that there's no wash, basically, beyond the parking lots. Very little wash, I mean, if any, and there's zero wash anywhere near any of our, certainly the residential areas in the back. In the front, there's a little bit of wash up here because we're so close to the Guard Motel, but again, we have 16-foot poles there. That's why we have such small poles.
Is it possible to put it up there?
I'm sorry? Yes,
It's very difficult to see the numbers.
certainly can.
Or just Kevin and I need better glasses.
Me too.
Pretty tiny.
So this is, this is the big one, which is really hard to read. What area in specific do you want me to look at? I can zoom in.
The parts that abut the residential,
Yep.
please.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
So there's an existing, not existing, this is going to be the pole against the outside of the parking lot. This is the wall pack. And these are the lumens that will be cast by these lights. So you can see the parking lot right here. You can see behind it, 0.1, and by the time you get, 10, 15 feet behind it, you're pretty close, almost to zero. And this is the lot line, 0, 0, 0, 0, up here. One of the things this doesn't take into account is topography, and it doesn't take into account vegetation. So it's actually less than this, because it doesn't take into account like a berm, and it doesn't take into account the vegetation that will be there. It just imagines, it's just looking at a flat piece of paper, and that's what it's throwing out. So that would be a worst-case scenario, is what we're showing here, if it was flat and had no vegetation. So you can see along the edge, 0.2, 0.1 by the time you get to the berm, 0.2, 0.1, again along the edge. Stop me if you need me to stop.
So there where it starts to pick up, Billy, the 1.4s and the 2.9s, what area is that right there?
This is the left, this is, as you were looking at the plan, we're down here.
And so as it goes around the corner there, the numbers got bigger?
Well, I think if you were looking at the parking lot, let me get into it better.
So, yeah, as you were,
Yeah, so see the parking lot?
Right.
So this is the parking lot, that's what they're kind of aiming for. You can see 1.5, 1.9, 2, 2.2. So as we get down around the
and
parking
then
lot,
as you go down here.
2.0.
As you go around the
Right
curve
there.
there.
Yeah.
It starts to get higher.
2.9, 2.8, right in this area here.
Right.
And then as you get behind it, the berm, again, that I was saying here, this berm is, that's,
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because you're right, as you hit the berm, it starts to really diminish again.
yeah. And then here, again, along the back. So we're trying through type of light we use, the wattage of the light, and again, it's a dark sky compliant, so it doesn't go
Shine
up.
up, yeah.
And that was one of the comments and questions that was the town engineer asked us about. So I think I'll stop right there and turn it over. Traffic.
Would that be you?
Yes, that is me.
Yeah, there you go.
You all set for me to go forward?
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. For the record, my name is Jason Adams with McMahon Associates. We have an office at 350 Miles Standish Boulevard in Taunton. We completed a traffic impact study. Bill, can I grab that? Right. completed a traffic impact study as part of this project, focusing on the site here. This is just an aerial view, Route 1 kind of diagonally coming across the page. We looked at the intersection of Route 1 with Pine Street here to the northeast, the intersection of Route 1 with North Street, and the intersection of Route 1 with the northern access to Patriot Place. We completed a new traffic volume data collection program at the end of March of this year, looking at the weekday morning peak period and weekday afternoon peak period, when the combination of vehicles in front of the site and vehicles coming to and from the site would be the highest. Those traffic volumes were then forecasted to the future year of 2029, and we projected the number of vehicle trips associated with the project, both in terms of passenger vehicles associated with employees and the truck vehicles associated with the warehouse operation. Those vehicles were assigned to the study area roadways, and then we analyzed the operations of each of these intersections, both with and without the proposed project, in order to understand what, if any, traffic impact the project has. Based on our review, the project would not have a significant impact along Route 1. There's capacity to accept a project of this size, especially considering that there formerly was a use on site. So it's not as if all of the traffic has never been seen on Route 1 and the surrounding roadway intersections here. The traffic impact study was peer-reviewed, as was Mr. Buckley's work, by the town's peer-reviewed consultant, Environmental Partners. They submitted a comment review letter. We are currently in the process of working through the comments, including adding an analysis of a Saturday midday peak period, which they asked for, and doing an additional review of crash data available through the town. Our crash data review is done using Mass DOT data. So we're working through all of those comments. Don't feel that the comments raised are going to appreciably change the conclusions reached in our report. So we do feel similar to Mr. Buckley, that we'll be able to work through those comments. Again, could be a little bit of back and forth, but feel we have good direction, and it was a very thorough review by your consultant, and feel we can accommodate those comments. So I'll keep it brief for now, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. So did you do any analysis about how tractor trailer or other large trucks would get into the site if they were not coming normally up on the north, headed north towards Boston to get in there? In other words, if they were coming south on Route 1 and needed to find a way to make a turn, which clearly they could not do at the corner of the North and Route 1.
Correct.
Did you look at different scenarios in which they would be able to accomplish that and then get to their destination at the site?
Yes, we did. So the vehicles coming from the north up here, traveling down Route 1 past the site, as we've talked about, no ability to turn here, no ability to turn at North Street. We'd expect they'd come down to the Patriot Place, take a left, take another left, take a right, and come back up to the site.
Did you do any analysis? Just a moment. You'll get your opportunity. You'll get your opportunity. Did you do any analysis of existing? You talked about existing truck traffic on Route 1. Did you look at North Street or Beach Street?
We conducted counts here on North Street at the intersection, so we have an understanding of the vehicle classifications at the intersection. We completed an automatic traffic recorder count, which is the tubes that go down on the roadway along Route 1 in between North Street and the site that showed a pretty even distribution of heavy vehicle percentages. Around 7 or 8% of the general traffic flow was heavy vehicle. That's today's volumes. The project site would certainly add a few vehicles, something on the order of a heavy vehicle every 5 to 10 minutes during the peak period, just like one single heavy vehicle every 5 to 10 minutes. So it's not going to be a noticeable difference along Route 1 within the path of the vehicles.
So you're making a presumption that North Street will not be used as a connector road, or Beach Street to North Street?
That is correct.
And what's that based on?
That is based on our project team understanding that we're going to direct our vehicles to come to and from the north via Route 1 and not from North Street, Beach Street, and the surrounding neighborhoods.
How many, sorry.
Go ahead.
From, obviously, you've assessed the current traffic situation, which you just shared with us, and maybe this is a question for Bill. I mean, what is the expected in and out traffic in this warehouse? Is it 10 trucks a day? Is it 15 trucks a day? Do we have a sense of that?
Yeah, we would expect across the entire day to be about 65 entering, 65 exiting over the full day of trucks.
And that's,
Can you wait, please, sir?
in addition to cars?
Correct.
Just trucks.
That's just trucks.
So I guess here's the, the elephant in the closet. How can you make these presumptions if you don't even know who the final occupant of the site will be?
In terms of the number of vehicles?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the traffic.
right. We completed a trip generation review based on data published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So they collect data from similar land uses all across the country, aggregate the data. It is what is used within our industry to forecast vehicle trips. So certainly a chance that it could be a little bit higher, but just as likely a chance it could be a little bit lower. It's the best way to approximate the number of vehicle trips based on data available to us. So again, you're right, we do not know the end user. They could have slightly different patterns of travel. There could be fewer trucks, a larger number of employees, fewer employees, a larger number of trucks, but it's the best approximation available to us.
So in your experience as a traffic analyst, have you ever done occupied buildings and then taken a look at, there's a difference between, as an example, if that became perhaps, let's say, maybe it's a Wayfair warehouse as opposed to an Amazon warehouse or a UPS warehouse or a Federal Express warehouse. There are different types of uses. So in your experience, has that kind of a study been done?
Yes, that
And what do they generally see?
typically they're in range. I would say typically probably within 20 to 25%, one way or the other. Certainly we've completed those post studies and found the trip generation to be lower than what was forecasted, as in the numbers are more conservative. There are different land use codes that can be applied to this. We chose one that was presented higher traffic volumes than a common warehouse. So a common warehouse is one. We chose a parcel hub just to present higher numbers. We wanted to be conservative. I mean, it's important to us that this site operate in an acceptable manner. Otherwise, the tenant's going to be unhappy, and that's not going to be good for anyone. So we wanted to make sure that we felt confident that the vehicle trips that would be generated by the project would be able to be accommodated in both directions, and we do feel that that's the case.
So, and do you take into account the artery that the site is on? In other words, if it's on Route 1 as an example versus along 95 or Route 24 or something that's more of a highway as opposed to, this is a highway, but you know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. The data is aggregated across a number of different site types, so it is not specific to Route 1. But given the general density of Route 1, the proximity of Route 1 to roadways like 95 and 495, the site is appropriately located along a corridor that's going to be accessible. And again, the tenant would work to make that as efficient as possible. They certainly want both their employees and their vehicles to be able to get in and out of the site effectively.
Okay, I have a question, and I think Jeff has one as well. You had mentioned that the southbound traffic would turn around in Patriots Place to access North Route 1.
Correct.
Isn't that private property?
Our research shows that the state highway layout goes around. So basically, the section that forms the left turn is under Massachusetts state highway layout.
On that same matter,
currently, you have northbound up at Pine Street. That's a no left turn coming southbound. Can't do it.
You're talking about coming southbound on Route 1?
Coming southbound,
Turning.
correct, right. Clearly, that can't be done at North Street, okay? Now,
Correct.
that would prohibit any types of issues that we're talking about here at the North Street, but we can't do it there.
Right.
So, that said, my question is, it's one thing for an owner-operator of a warehouse or distribution center to tell his drivers, well, you're not supposed to pull a U-turn there. My experience, and I think the board's experience in other situations is that's sometimes effective, sometimes not. To make that give a little more teeth to that, is that something that you'd have to work with Mass DOT on?
In terms of adding more truck restrictions, is that
At North Street?
at North Street? Yeah.
Because I don't think they're going to want to shut off U-turns there for passenger
passenger
vehicles
vehicles,
altogether.
right.
That would be my guess, or maybe not. You know, maybe they could send them down to Patriots Place as well.
Right, yes, that would be a Mass DOT issue that we'd be willing to work for.
Okay. Another question, you had referenced roughly 65 plus or minus truck trips in and out of the site per day, and how do you define a day?
A 24-hour period, so midnight to midnight, right.
Okay.
Where is it?
And in your planning and research, any thought to how a potential tenant would deal with stadium traffic and events?
I mean, I know that there's general turn restrictions that are part of the programming of stadium events. That this project would not be any different from that. I think knowing that the schedule is available, I would expect that the tenant and end user would operate around that, so certainly avoiding Sunday game days, you know, in terms of having deliveries and coming, perhaps even having staffing changes. Again, I think that's something that the tenant would want to work through, that they're not going to want to have, you know, their shipment or, you know, their staffing or whatever element that disrupted. You know, it is a major element of this section of town and really the whole region. So it behooves them, as much as it does anyone, to factor that in, and they would certainly be abiding by any existing restrictions.
And based on your experience in these types of situations, would you anticipate that any operator here would be operating 7 days a week?
Yes.
Question I have to add on to that. Are you expecting to lease it to one company or multiple?
At this point, it's unknown. Again, it's being built on spec. It could be one tenant, it could be possibly three. It's being built, so it could be divided into 3 sections.
I'm struggling with how we've got game days, we've got concerts, we've got monster truck jams, we've got multiple events. I mean, how do you, I'd be interested to hear how you would stop the traffic with multiple tenants and make them aware that, like, they can't go there on those days. That seems a little far-fetched.
Well, there's other warehousing on Route 1, on Panis Road. There's 5 warehouses with over 225,000 square feet. On Annette Road, there's at least 3 with over 130,000 square feet. And there are others on Route 1 where New England Pottery used to be, and others. So they all work within those same conditions.
And do they operate 7 days a week?
I'm sorry?
Do they operate 7 days a week?
I do not know. But I know all the ones on Panis Road have no restrictions, so they can operate 7 days a week. And we're not saying it's going to be done 7 days a week. That's what we're requesting. Whoever the tenant is, or tenants, will determine that on their own. But that's what we're coming forward with this application.
And would that be a licensing matter at that point,
With
in terms of hours of operation?
a license with whom?
I'm just asking, would that be a licensing matter before the Board of Selectmen at that point?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Well, could it be a condition
It could be, sure.
of
Yeah.
a special permit
Yeah.
that operations can only happen during certain hours
Or certain,
or on certain days?
Yeah,
Right.
and then with the 65, or would you say 70 trucks a day, in your traffic impact study, to peak daytime and peak evening, what about if it's 24/7? What's the thought of how many trucks will be after that time, like during the night?
You mean like after hours, after
Yeah, after
11?
hours. If it's a 24/7 warehouse, and you're doing peak studies, in afternoon and morning, what kind of traffic will be going into this place at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Very minimum, I asked the applicant, and they said, after sometime in the evening till the next morning, the maximum on any one evening will be somewhere between, 5 and possibly 9, 10 maximum, more on the lower side, because most of them, they want in there during the night beforehand so they can load them up and get them going in the morning. That's the real intent.
How are you making
But
that
sometimes-
assumption, though? Sorry. How are you making that assumption, though, Frank? If you don't know who's going to be in there, I don't understand how you can put any numbers.
It's a valid point, but I did ask them what was their,
But the applicant and the tenants or tenant are two different groups. So
Yep.
the applicant, it's like me answering a question that's asked of Gary about his family. I don't know.
that's right.
So,
But we could be here with a tenant and
but your
explain
applicant is
something
the
to.
person building.
And explain something to you with regard to that tenant. And then, once it's built, there could be a different tenant in there, or that tenant could be in there for a number of years, and then it changes over. So we're trying to give you the best information we can with the knowledge that we have. We're not trying to,
No, we don't think you're trying to do anything, but I
Yep.
think that where I hear Tracy going is that I think you might have to expect that the order of conditions and the restrictions that may get put on there due to the things like stadium events and other things may condition who the applicant gets in for a tenant, so that they're aware before they get in there of what happens on
that's
Route,
exactly where I was
what
going.
happens on Route 1. And then there's no misunderstanding that it's like open season 24/7, 365. That there are issues that come along with the building, just like there are issues that the residents who live near the stadium have to experience. We all have to live with what the overall experience is, whether it's game day, concert day, collegiate stuff that happens there, graduations, all kinds of things that appear there. And I know that we have our traffic consultant here too, and I just wanted to ask if you don't mind, if you would just come up to the mic and speak and just tell us what you think. Are these assumptions, correct in your mind? Do you feel you have any differences with what's been presented, or at least initially?
Thank you. For the record, my name is Greg Lucas from Environmental Partners. I conducted the traffic review for the board, peer reviewing study prepared by McMahon. And some of the same questions that the board's asking were part of our review with regards to the time of operation, which is why we had asked for a Saturday analysis, which is typical for a facility that will function on a Saturday. The trip components of the facility, what was used in the study is the best available information that our industry has of aggregating sites using trip generation information available from the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So it was done appropriately, it was done conservatively. There's a number of different types of warehouses, and they used the one that shows the most volume for those peak periods. So the most conservative way to estimate what those trips might be, both for vehicles and for trips. We also raised the question of stadium functions and what the traffic management is like along Route 1, understanding that that's going to restrict access to the site during those major events. We also raised the question of trucks and what analysis was done about truck traffic using North Street and Beach Street. We understand that, as it was described by McMahon, that trucks will come down Route 1 and turn around at Patriot Place, which makes sense. We had raised the question also about the jurisdiction, but understand that that is part of state layout, so that's an allowed movement. It's a logical movement because they can't make a U-turn at North Street, so they would go down to that signalized intersection. Going north, leaving the site, if they wanted to go south, they turn around at Pine Street using the slip ramps, and then come back to the signal and turn left from Pine Street. So that's the general summary of the major points that we had raised, and I'm happy to answer any further questions that you have.
I just wanted to get your
Sure.
general consensus on it, and, you know, if you feel like the information was accurate and how you concluded that they came to their conclusions. Okay.
Yeah, and they've prepared draft responses to our comments and proposed to address some of the things that we asked and provide additional information on some of those points, as was stated by Jason. I would agree with that, you know, there'll be some back and forth, but nothing significant.
Can I just ask one question? In your review, had any consideration been given to, we've talked about access to the site from Route 1, southbound, northbound, whatever, through residential streets, or if, you know, a driver is, you know, following his GPS and/or maybe gets off at Mechanic Street or other areas in town. Any thought given to that? My own personal feeling is I think some of that may be overblown, but certainly it's not unreasonable to incorporate some sort of steps. I'm just not sure what they are and where that authority would fall.
I think to your point, there is the ability for the operator to do their best to ensure as to what route trucks will follow. At the same time, there's also the possibility that a truck driver will follow a GPS or follow the simplest path. As far as jurisdiction, there's an existing overnight heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on North Street and Beach Street. So as far as overnight, that existing exclusion already exists, was granted by MassDOT a number of years ago. We would encourage the town to erect the proper signage for that restriction. And it would be something that could be pursued specifically for Beach Street for a 24-hour exclusion for heavy vehicles. If there was, in those instances, the state has jurisdiction over those, even though it is a local road. Yeah. The state would need to agree to that. Data would need to be presented. The state will grant exclusions if there is an existing problem. They would need to show an existing issue with trucks
So that would
on
need
the
to be an
roadway.
after-the-fact application.
That would be an after-the-fact application, but the potential exists, and it's something that the town would pursue through the state.
Sure. Thank you.
He does. Just general traffic on Beach and North.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
You know, the applicant is committed to, you know, using 495 and 95 and Route 1 to access the property. So we'd be very comfortable with a condition that says, you know, they'll direct their tenants or instruct their tenants to direct all their drivers to come from that way and not to use Beach or North Street to access the property. And we're very comfortable with that.
And I understand that you're comfortable with that, but I think it's like anything, Frank, and this is not a disparagement of the applicant or even the tenants that might appear. But once the building's turned over, it's under the control of third parties, that the applicant will not be there to babysit on a regular basis. They're gonna be the landlord. They're gonna, you know, make sure that the building stays in the condition they want it to stay in, that, you know, the rents come in on time, that, you know, there's no phone calls on a consistent basis that, hey, you guys are violating X, Y, and Z. But, you know, the third party is the third party, and yes, we hope that they'll comply. We'll certainly use whatever legal forces we have to do our best to make sure they comply, whether that's the local police, the state police, or, you know, whatever, and other boards, you know, relative to, you know, water, sewer, anything like that that would be impacted. But, you know, and none of us know, and it's, you know, I don't think that we can, it's not to cast an aspersion, it's just to say, we need to know as much upfront as we can that these things are buttoned down so that we don't run into problems later on. And I think that's to the benefit of the town and also the applicant, because the less headaches they get, because tenants aren't following the regulation, the less, you know, the happier they'll be.
And to add to that, with all these unknowns, I would, personally speaking for myself, not the board, there would have to be so many conditions where, in my opinion, for me to be comfortable with this, that I think it'd be a huge deterrent for tenants. So then the question becomes, is this the way that the applicant wants to go, not knowing who's going in, and knowing that because of that, there could be significant conditions? Or does he want to wait till he has a sense of who the tenants are, understanding they can change over time?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
One thing I heard Greg mention from Environmental Partners is that, the study would have to be done by the town to get the 24-hour restriction on Beach Street. We currently have the overnight, and I know DPW has ordered the signs. Somehow that fell off the radar screen and people didn't know, but we did find that information and the signs are being ordered and going up for the overnight truck exclusion on Beach and North that exists today. But one question would be, is in the interim, regardless of what you just said, Tracy, but if the developer would be able to do that study to support the 24-hour. It doesn't feel like it should fall on the town. That's probably not in our budget anytime soon. It would take some time because, like Greg said, it's a MassDOT review. But it does seem fair that perhaps, the applicant, as one of their conditions, could have that study data collected and get the application ready for the town to submit. And again, it would be a lagging approval, and there's no guarantee. I don't know if, Greg, you were indicating that Beach Street is more likely to get a 24-hour than a North Street, but, I feel like we might want to try, and, I don't know whether, we can't figure out yet whether last time, when the overnight was given, why it wasn't 24-hour. We're not sure whether it was requested at the time. I have asked MassDOT in Boston, but that's going to probably take a while to find out if ever. MassDOT down in Taunton, District 5, doesn't know. So we don't know whether it's been denied previously or whether it was never asked. And I don't know, Greg, if you have any recommendations on how this could be handled. But if something was going to go in here like this, is there a way to get this moving so the town isn't carrying that burden?
Yeah, to your point, it could be, we've seen this done before, or it could be funded by the applicant or funded and conducted by the applicant so that the town can submit that information to MassDOT. You had mentioned, I said Beach Street was more likely. The reason for that is the functional classifications of the roadways. North Street's an arterial roadway. Mechanic Street on the other end is an arterial roadway. Beach Street is a local roadway. So it shouldn't be carrying, based on that functional classification alone, it shouldn't be carrying through truck traffic, even though it's situated between Route 1 and 95.
And how long does that type of, if, say, you submitted something to MassDOT now for that truck exclusion, I know it's hard to predict, but what's an average amount of time that review would take?
I think typically those studies are reviewed and feedback given within 2 to 3 months, sometimes quicker. You can never be too sure. There's no promises on that sort of thing.
Okay,
But typically that would be a common timeline.
great, thank you.
It would need, obviously also first, you would need to collect the data and submit.
Right, that's
prepare-
when you have
Prepare and
everything.
submit the study, so that's before you submit it. After you submit it, possibly 2 to 3 months.
Great.
On a decision from MassDOT.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The one problem that I see with even getting an exclusion like that is gonna be enforcement of it. Right. Because the navigational apps that are available today, Waze, Google, they very quickly will route you through a residential area to get you around a traffic situation. I use it myself on many occasions, and it puts you through neighborhoods that you would never drive through. So if you've got a truck driver that's coming in, and it says, take a left, take a right, take a left, they're in the residential
No.
area.
It's not open
Can
to
you
the
just
public
just
yet.
wait 1 minute, and we'll get to you, I promise.
So I don't know if there's.
Is there a way,
control
Greg,
that.
to, does GPS have any sort of truck exclusion information? Do truckers tend to follow a different GPS than, say, Waze, where they would be limited?
So some trucks are equipped with a different GPS unit that would have that information built in and would show them where the exclusions are, but there's no guarantee that a truck operator is using that function. The commercial GPS is cheaper, or Waze is cheaper on your phone, and so that wouldn't show those restrictions.
Thank you.
Chief Grace, can I put you on the spot? Is there, come on down. No, my question is from a police department perspective, what enforcement is reasonable to get? And I'm not saying just from your, like, for any police force to enforce something like that.
Mike Grace, 23 Lewis Road, the police chief. I'm not quite sure of the question, what you're asking me, but once the restrictions are put up there for signs,
What about before the restrictions?
well, if it's not restricted for
You
a
can't
truck,
do it. What about after they're put up?
it's game on. Like, if there's a truck on the road and it's not supposed to be there, and it's over the weight limit for that restriction, then you can stop it and cite it.
Excuse me. Just a reminder, it's not open to the public. Thank you, chief. That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Does Chris have something to say?
Anything else?
Chris is coming down.
Chris Gallagher.
Where is he?
Oh, my
Oh,
God.
Chris.
Good, how are you?
Chris Gallagher, 246 Mechanic Street. I'm also the DPW director. So I've been here 8 years, working in town. I've never seen truck exclusion signs on Beach or North. The town engineer and Page have since dug up the appropriate documentation, going back to 2008, when that was approved by Mass DOT. The signs were ordered end of last week. As soon as I have them, they'll be put up. So as soon as I have them, and I'm hoping it's maybe tomorrow or early next week, they'll go up, and then the police department can start enforcing them. It's 2.5 ton weight limit is what the truck exclusion is. So it is, at the moment, it's 7 PM to 7 AM. So that's what the signs are gonna read. If we are able to change that through this process or in the future, then we'll change it, and the signs will get changed, and the enforcement changes.
And you'll,
Beach and North.
and you'll put it at both ends?
They'll be on both ends and probably a couple in the middle. So if they're coming out of any neighborhood, like you said,
Edwards
Ron,
Road or
you know,
wherever, yeah.
the GPS puts you in some weird spots that you don't expect to see some of these trucks. And, so we'll put them in the midpoints too, so that if they see them, they know they're not supposed to be on, and hopefully they stay off it the next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kevin, I have one other.
You mean like a UPS truck or an Amazon truck, is that what you're
Oh, like a
saying?
moving van,
Moving van,
Yeah. okay.
plumber, yeah, okay.
The other question I had was, is there any conditioning that we could look at as far as hours of operation for truck traffic in and out of the site itself? Loading and unloading, like we did with Chips. We limited, he could not have a truck in there at 2 o'clock in the morning dropping vehicles off.
Right.
I believe as a special permit, you can put
Right.
conditions on.
Because there are abutters there. I mean, they are still 300 feet away, but noise travels, so.
I think the only thing I've heard anecdotally, and I was not here during the time, is about trucks lining up outside the terminals to wait for the gates open. So I don't know how you handle that. We wouldn't want to, I'm not saying we want 24 hours, but just, you probably want to go further to make sure that you're not ending up with, trailers idling somewhere, waiting to get into a site.
Well, there's a 5-minute idle law anyways, not that it's enforced, but.
Right. So I think we
don't
need to take
believe
it that
this would be
extra
gated,
step.
would it?
I'm sorry?
So access to this site would not be gated.
No, not at this time. But as Paige was saying, the terminals at one point had restrictions on their hours. The original variance that allowed the terminals back in the 60s restricted truck movements, trucks coming in, moving, from 7 AM to 11 PM, 7 days a week. Eventually, we were able to go in and get that changed so that the Route 1 side, the further side from the residents, could be open 24 hours a day, except for Sundays. We eliminated Sundays completely from Saturday at 8 PM until Monday at 3 AM. There was no truck movements at all. But on the Route 1 side, it was allowed 24 hours a day, except for that one exclusion. The reason for it was because trucks were showing up, and Paige said idling outside the gate. And if they were shooed away, they were going down onto the side streets, even though they were told, there's a place to park, further down Route 1. They wouldn't do that, and they'd sit there and idle and all that. We did it initially on a one-year trial run. It worked out well, and they made it permanent for the terminals. Also in that decision, they said all trucks coming out of there had to, of course, take a left to go out to Route 1. And it generally, the vast majority of the time, was followed. Occasionally, they would get a call, and eventually I would get a call, that there were trucks, typically on North Street using it. And would it be one of two things? Either one, it wasn't one of their trucks. Two, it was a new person that, was trying to get around it. Well, the third one was occasionally you'd find somebody coming from Mansfield. And of course, that's the directest route from Mansfield to over here. And they'd have a talk with that person and go, even though that's the shortest route, get on the highway and come out that way. So really, significantly helped, and the residents in that area, because we were on a one-year trial run, endorsed it. And that's one of the drawbacks about having it not opening during the night, especially early in the morning, because trucks would hang out in front of the gate and be shooed away. And there was a gate there, and there is a gate there.
But that said, you just made a pretty compelling case for those types of reasonable arrangements.
Well,
And I guess my question
but it was
is-
open 24
ahead.
hours a day, except for Sundays, between those hours I recommended, because of these other issues. And that's why, as Mr. Buckley pointed out, we put all of the bays on the opposite
Right.
side. Initially, when they came to us, they had bays all the way around.
Right.
And, Mr. Buckley specifically really enforced on them, we should really put them all on the opposite side to have the least amount of impact as possible with the residential neighbors. And that's why, which is similar to, the terminals. The terminals were allowed to operate 24 hours a day, except for the Sunday exclusion hours, on the Route 1 side. And the neighbors found that was better than having the gates closed from, again, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Right, we did similar restrictions with the movie theater, the movie
Studio.
studio, thank you. Where one side was able to be used much
Yeah.
longer hours than the others.
Yeah. But for example, there's over 225,000 square feet of warehousing on Panish Road alone with no restrictions. There's other warehouses along Route 1 with no restrictions. This is a large facility, yes. Some of those abut neighbors, residential neighbors. They have no restrictions.
Do any of them operate 24 hours a day?
To my knowledge, I don't know. They have the ability, the trucks can come in.
But, and keep in mind, when they're in the Panis Park, they're not on Route 1. Excuse me.
But they abut,
You'll get a chance.
yep. But two things. One, they abut, some of them abut residential. And two, their trucks also come from local roads. That's how they have to get there. And that's the big concern here. How do you get to this site? It's either, 495, 95 and Route 1 or local roads. And we've committed to, come in off of 495, 95 using Route 1.
Can I just ask one question? And very mindful that we probably want to move this along and get people involved from the audience. But you had mentioned, again, we'll go back to that 65 vehicle trip in and out a day. And we have parking for 121 trucks. So could you kind of maybe, Mr. Spillane or yourself, or if you can, to the extent, could you give us an idea of how this operation, you would envision it operating? Am I to understand that trucks will come in, load or unload and be gone, or if we've only got 65 in and out in a 24-hour period on average, and we've got 120 spaces, I'm not quite getting the math.
Are those just
And maybe
trailers?
Maybe I just don't understand how it would work.
You park in trailers?
Trailers, they're not trucks. And I'm sorry I said trucks, those are trailer parking, 121 trailer spaces along the back there.
Are they in addition to the 65 that would go in and out on a daily basis?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I'd say so.
I think it's all, I mean, if you think of it as the entirety of the operation, there's, first of all, I don't think that a lot of the tenants want to have a trailer in every single spot. There wants to be a little bit of flexibility. It makes getting around the site easier, right? So there's always a built-in, like when we think about how much parking do you need, once a lot gets to be 85% full, it's somewhat perceived as being full. So there's always some amount of surplus built in. The 65 trucks that would enter, 65 that exit, again, it's not knowing the tenant, how they're going to use the space. There could be vehicles that arrive towards the end of one night, leave during the next day, vice versa, right? There could be trucks that are on the site, trailers that are on the site for more than a 24-hour period. So some of those parks, maybe some element of equipment moving or shuffling of goods, however they want to use it. It just provides maximum flexibility for the tenant to use. So similar to the employee parks, you're not trying to get exactly the right number. You want to make sure that you have more. You look at parking regulations across the state, they're often built out to accommodate something that likely is not really going to happen or might happen for just a couple days a year. I think that's a similar way to think of this. You wouldn't want to have just 65 or 80 parks here. You want to have a surplus that would allow for the necessity of possibly having certain trucks stay for longer amounts of time, certain trailers be there for longer amounts of time while still being able to serve your day-to-day operations.
I apologize. I wasn't trying to trip you up on the math.
No,
or anything
it's
like
good
that.
to think through.
I was more interested in sort of if you had a sense of how this type of sized facility would operate, and I guess what I heard was you don't really know because we don't know the tenant.
Correct.
But the traffic report does, give you the peak hour truck movement, what they expect, and I believe it's 10.
Yeah, about right. 10 exiting in the morning would be about the peak of that. 10 of the 65 would happen in the weekday morning peak hour. So that would the busiest time would be a truck exiting every 6 minutes approximately. But that's for a very finite amount of time, and then it's less across the rest of the day.
I know Kevin.
And again, that is a conservative number from what they used.
I know Kevin's going to open this up to the public in a minute, but I'm still scratching my head because you're answering questions without knowing who's in there. And I appreciate your approximating and you're trying to be conservative. I personally don't think 65 a day is conservative. I'm kind of like I just said to Kevin, how many looping around the Patriot Place, that jug handle or whatever you want to call it. I just have, you're answering questions that you don't have the answers for, and you're I don't want to say you're guessing, but you're hypothesizing on what it will be, and that's cause for concern for me.
I hear your concern, but if this was an office building, we wouldn't know what's going into the office building per se.
There would also be 18-wheelers going in there.
Right, but what I'm saying is the traffic would be an estimation, knowing from the information that has been accumulated with different reports.
Yeah, but nobody works in office buildings anymore, Frank.
No, true.
And 4-passenger vehicles and 18-wheelers, incredibly different.
Let me open this up, okay? So I will open it up for the public. You can raise your hand. It'd probably be best if you want to speak, if you just come down to the front row, it'll be easier to recognize, whoever you are. Just come up to the microphone once we call on you and state your name and address for the record, okay?
And just a reminder that any questions get addressed to the chair, not to the applicant.
They'll hear you, but.
And as
They'll
someone-
hear you, but-
As someone comes down, we should all just say thank you for the folks who submitted written commentary.
Yes.
Yes, as
Very
well.
helpful.
And we've read them all.
So, who'd like to start? Please come down.
It's kind of like The Price is Right.
You can both come down.
You don't win any money, though.
Or like town meeting, if you're familiar with town meeting.
Yeah. You can start and just state your name and address. The rest of you can just sit right in the first row there, and we'll get to you promptly.
My name is Bruce Young. I live on Beach Street.
Can you give us your
After-
actual address, Mr.?
Excuse me?
Can you give us your actual address?
128.
Thank you.
I've heard all this stuff. The one thing I haven't heard is safety. And there are runners on Beach Street. There are many children now. And nothing is brought up about that. You have school buses on the odd side of Beach. That's the only way they can, the trucks can go. That's the side all the school buses go. So what's your proposal on safety for children and people who walk, run, things like that? You, I know, you're a
I knew you
runner.
were looking at me.
That's it.
Thank you very much for your input. We appreciate it. Sir, if you'd like to speak? Yeah.
Paul Morrison, South Grove Street. I know I don't live in the area, but I have a
Just give us your address as well.
77 South Grove.
Thank you.
I live on the Mansfield side, you know, the Southeast Expressway Street.
Right.
And I have my own rendition of what should go on here that'll eliminate all trucks from Beach Street. It's not as colorful and pretty as what's up there, but it'll do, I think, you know? And could I submit this?
You can submit it. We'll get it up to the table. And
All right, you know, and I think this is a workable item here, you know? Now, on my first plan, it has Route 1 here, and you have Fox Hill Drive, all right? Let's incorporate that into the plan. And 3 places on Route 1, okay? And the casino, you have the intersection at Lowe's, and you have the one further down by Butler Tire in North Attleboro. They've all had left-hand turns incorporated in the road, all right? Whereas, you know, at Lowe's, if you go on Route 1 South, you got to that jug handle years ago. Now you can just take a left. Simple. That's what they should do right here at Fox Hill Drive. Put a set of lights, okay, and have all the trucks come Route 1 South and just go right into Fox Hill Drive. Now, my second sheet here, when you go up Fox Hill Drive to Phelps Road and to Perry Drive and to Panis, right behind all these businesses or whatever you got in there, they should, you know, the tenant, whoever wants to buy this building or whoever's got it, the client, I guess you could say, should purchase 100 feet width, you know, and go straight across from Panis Drive. So all truck traffic will go right into the industrial park and take a right into their backyard, right there. That should have been thought of instead of taking Route 1 in consideration, you know, of all the traffic. This way, it's, I'm not done yet. This way, you could have 500 feet, okay, say, I don't know, whatever. You know, you turn around and you say, well, you got 100 feet wide, no trucks parking overnight, nobody idling, okay? Let them go down Route 1 and rent them. They want to enjoy. And that's what it should be. Everything comes out of Fox Hill Drive, you know? And then when the people in Fox Hill Drive will love this, because when they come out of Fox Hill Drive, they'll come to a set of lights and they either go right or left, okay? And I'm telling you, it's a simple solution here. It wasn't thought of. And here at Route 1, we'll go back to that. You got the vet right across the street from Fox Hill Drive. You give them a new driveway. You say, okay, we'll take care of you. And then you got, take a little land taking over here, and you just make the road a little wider there. So you have one lane that's going to be left-hand lane only coming south. And that's it. Simple solution. And you have Mass DOT say, we'll pay for the street lights and throw them in or whatever, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And that's it. Right here.
All right, you can submit it.
Why don't we take a look at it?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for your input. Okay.
We appreciate you putting that together.
Yes, sir, you wanted to speak?
How you doing? Tim Sullivan, 171 Beach Street. A couple things, going back, how it was presented chronologically. The people down the bottom of Tucker Lane, all right, Spot A, I believe it was, that grade elevation change going up to the proposed building.
Yes.
Sounds like a lot of water problems with displacement once that building goes in. I don't see anything on the southwest corner for accepting water.
Tim, they cannot.
Tim?
Yeah, they cannot allow water to go from a developing site to an existing site. It is
But
completely.
it even happens naturally through displacement.
Mr. Buckley would have to, he'll have design plans showing water retention and distribution. And you are
It has to
not
head in
allowed
the other
to-
direction.
You're not allowed to let it run into anybody else's
Okay,
property.
all right, on that. The second thing, on the southbound side of Route 1, I think it could probably be negotiated with Walpole, that maybe they create a flyover that dumps you right into the lot.
Well, it's
They
really
got the
has-
money to build
it-
this
It
building.
really has very little to do with Walpole. It has to do with the state DOT
Well,
allowing
the
it
DOC.
and having it constructed.
But I mean, they can make a flyover for the truck specifically. They got the money to build this, they can easily build a ramp like Crafted, like Mr. Crafted. No option, then you wouldn't have any trucks coming down to North Street.
The state did it.
Huh?
The state did it,
Yeah.
yeah. So
If possible.
that might take a long time. The building may be obsolete by the time you get the state to build that.
Well, that would be even better.
No, well, okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Go right ahead.
David Lesko, 174 Beach Street. I've been around town since 1976. I've been at my current address for almost 27 years now, and I remember the terminals when they were active. The truck traffic that used to come down Beach Street, even if they were not supposed to, the noise in the middle of the night from the terminals, banging and clanging, I don't know what was causing that. We hear the same thing from the trains these days. And I just see this as a replacement for the terminals. It's going to be bringing the same problems back into the neighborhood. I know they say 65 trucks a day, but anybody arguing their argument is going to either, depending on their side, overinflate or underestimate the numbers. And I still see traffic, tractor trailers coming down Beach Street occasionally. My residence is on the 20-mile-an-hour section of Beach Street, and tractor trailers, just several weeks ago, a tractor trailer came down, he must have been doing 35. Traffic comes down, the speed limit is 40 down to Edwards Road, then it changes to 35, and just before Meadowview, it changes to 20, but nobody slows down. Traffic does 30 to 40 miles an hour in that section. And
Would you, just a quick question, would you estimate that that's the same for regular vehicular traffic, to cars as well?
oh yeah, I see cars going down that street, going by my house, they're doing at least 30, sometimes more than what I'm estimating.
Okay.
And it's just a problem on that street. We have a lot of residences, we have children, people walking their dogs. I know we have a sidewalk now, but a lot of people don't use the sidewalk, mainly because in that 20-mile-an-hour section, the sidewalk is curved around trees that are no longer there. So a lot of joggers and bicycles are up and down that area. And I just see this as bringing the terminals back into our neighborhood, causing the same problems we've always had with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bob Kaufman, 187 Beach. And I don't know if this is applicable or not, because, again, to the young lady's point that was talking about earlier, we don't know who the tenant's going to be. And I hear a lot of talk about tractor trailers, 65 to 120, whatever, 130 if you double it. But what's going to happen if the tenant becomes an Amazon, and then you have vans, and you've tripled your traffic going up and down the local roads, because you can't shut off the local roads to vans. And, you know, I mean, you're shutting them off to a certain weight truck, but I don't know, based on what they're saying, who or what is going to occupy the warehouse, and what are you going to do for deliveries 24/7? Is that going to impact, and is that part of the traffic study?
Good point. To that point you just made, which is a good one, I also want to say that just like you can't shut down Beach Street to vans or smaller vehicles, we really can't at this point, going forward, currently or previously. I hope everyone understands that you really can't shut down Beach Street to trucks occasionally as well. As you had said earlier, you do see the occasional vehicle down there, and I know, and I see him myself. And that's just gonna happen from time to time. And regardless of if this project is approved, you're gonna see that from time to time in the future too. You're never
We're
gonna
not talking
eliminate
about-
that.
We're not talking about shutting it down. We're
I
talking
understand
about
that.
tripling the volumes.
I
Or maybe
understand that.
quadrupling the volumes. So, and I'm not going to disagree with anyone that says the speed limit's an issue now, and I get it, you can't have the police there 24/7 monitoring it, but at the same time, do we really want to open up ourselves to something that's going to be, hundreds of cars or trucks or vans a day on Beach? I mean, it's great that we shut it down 3 hours before game time, but you can't do that all the time.
Correct.
So, that was my point.
I think this guy was, did you want to speak? He's been playing up in the back, so.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Name's Ken Retz. I live at 138 Beach Street. So the people here, residents that live here, okay? If that opens up, you're going to be up all night, okay? I live at the end of Willis, okay, which is probably 750 feet away from an industrial park now. They keep me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. How does that make sense? Doesn't. And you can't tell these people, you can't tell the town what you're even going to do there, who's going to be there or anything, which makes this kind of meeting kind of childish, to be honest with you. If they don't have any good facts to supply you at all, and everybody in this room knows it, this is like almost a waste of time that you're presenting this or allowing this with so little information. Your studies are incorrect, okay? For 2 years now, the Oliver Mint and the golf place shut down, so no water usage. So there goes your water usage. Okay? We can't use water now, so we're going to build something to allow people to use more water that we can't use already. Makes absolutely zero sense.
But the water usage is not restricted by the town, it's restricted by the state.
But wait a minute, let me finish, because you made us a promise that you're going to build a pump station that's going to rectify our water problem. Well, our
No,
water yes, you did. That's how it was sold. No, wait a minute. I have my say.
You do,
It
but you can't
was
just
how it
accuse us
was
of something
sold.
that's not true, sir.
2015, I bought my house on Beach Street, okay? I've lived in many towns and in many states, okay? 30-mile-an-hour residential streets are common, okay? You spent all of this money in putting islands up at the corner of Beach and Mechanic, okay? You put 9 trees in. There's only 3 remaining. So where's the insurance money for the other 6 trees that the tractor trailers took out? Why are the tractor trailers allowed to drive on Foxborough Animal Hospital's property to make the turn? You built the islands to stop the tractor trailers. Okay, you redesigned the road for craft to make it a pedestrian-friendly road. But yet, as a town, you took down the signs because the weight limits were there when I moved in. Okay, they were there. The crosswalks aren't marked. They're not tagged or labeled. You have school bus stops all up and down the street. You took away the side of the street parking. Why? Why did you take the one side of the street that residents can park on and take it away from them to make the road wider to fit what? Tractor trailers, because you're letting them down the road. And it's been known for a long time because I had meetings with the police and the town about this. It is a hassle. It is an issue. I can tell you right now, I can't walk across the street with my dogs because not one car will stop. There's a lady in a blue Honda Accord. She stops every time. Everybody else, they blast right past. They don't care. You painted the yellow line. You made it look like a throughway, and nobody respects the road. So you have to take some type of responsibility to this with the promises and when you made the road and all the signs that were put up, but conveniently came down once Foxborough Terminal closed. This is all true facts. I have pictures and I have videos to document everything I'm telling you. I can send you videos of tractor trailers doing 50 miles an hour down Beach Street.
Well, I would like to see that.
I live on a blind.
I would like to see that.
Respond to you. I live
And I
on
think
a
the chief
blind
would like
turn
to see that,
along
too.
with everybody else down towards the 20-mile-an-hour zone. Do you realize if you're doing 30 miles an hour in a truck loaded with at least 10 yards of material, okay, so we're putting us over the 28,000 ton limit, it's going to take that truck 3 times longer to stop. You want to know why? Because of the weight. Now, if that's your kid in the street, he is no longer going to be there. It's that simple. This project makes no help to the town. 0 help to the town. They're showing you that they're supplying absolutely nothing to you. All the residents, absolutely nothing. I stay up in the middle of the night from a terminal that's right behind my house. 4 houses away, John, what do you think? 700 feet. 700 feet away. I see the light clear as day. I hear the noise all night long, okay? So now you want to build a factory behind these people's homes and say that you're going to keep down the noise and you're going to keep control? It is impossible for you to make a statement like that. Impossible. Completely impossible, because you don't know who is going to be in there, which means this project serves this town and these residents 0.
Hi, my name's Devin Kaludi. I live at 15 Willis Lane, and I have a picture right here on my phone from my bedroom window that shows the IDI insulation warehouse that operates 24/7 a day that I can clearly see. There's no trees, there's nothing.
Is that on Panis Road, sir?
What is that?
Is that on Panis Road?
That is the one that's at the very end of Panis Road, you're correct.
I just wanted to clarify.
And that's what these people that live at Tucker Lane are gonna experience, and this tree, how tall are these trees? Can they tell us how tall these trees are supposed to be when they're planted?
Mr.
6
Buckley,
feet, 8
can you
feet?
tell them how tall those trees will be? And that,
Initial installation, trees?
I don't know.
You don't know? You said it before. I thought it said 8 feet, maybe? 12 feet? Okay. Those don't look like 12-foot trees to me. Those look like trees that have been there for 20 years. Okay? And then you turn the page to the next one. No, it's never going to look like that. You're going to see that building, that light's going to come pouring through. That light luminescence survey they did that shows 0 and doesn't take account for vegetation or anything, just like if it's an open space. So you don't know everything can reflect. I wouldn't rely on that to protect your houses and from the pollution that this is going to cause in your backyards. Yeah,
Sir,
and if you want, you know what?
You're done. You had your say.
It's
You're
all right,
done.
you can say. This is unacceptable, and this is not how anybody should live.
And you should send that to us.
I will show you, I'll show the camera, whatever you want. I can send it to you, that's fine.
That's fine.
And I'll take video at 3 a.m. And furthermore, people have already made a lot of good points about the traffic, but you know that, listen, I've been a tow truck operator for almost 20 years in the city of Boston. There's lots of truck restrictions in that city. We don't pay any attention to them because the cops will never stop us, okay? I guarantee it. Loaded with 2 cars, one on the wheel lift, one on the bed, we will not get stopped by any cop, state or local, okay? And unfortunately, I know that the police are not able to patrol every street in town 24 hours a day. And I can guarantee you that trucks will take that street, no problem. GPS is going to tell them. Waze will always bring you the fastest and easiest way. And there are trucker GPSs, but they really don't work in towns like this. They work great in New York City. They work great in Chicago, but they won't work great in a residential town where there's little truck restrictions that have been in place for how long and there's no signs up? Come on. That's somebody not doing the job, okay?
No, it's not our job.
Well, not your job. I'm saying somebody should have had those signs there. They should be there. You can't enforce it if there's no sign. It'll never hold up in court, and we know that. So we got to think, and there has to be a 24/7 heavy truck restriction on that street if this place is going in, because like he said, there's no reason for anybody to fear for their life or their safety with having these trucks coming up and down the street. And the same people live on North Street. And quite frankly, I'm surprised there's not people from Walpole here because they're going to have the same stuff coming from South Walpole too. So I'd consider very heavily before allowing this group of individuals to construct this monstrosity. And honestly, they should put some kind of resort there that would bring money to this town. Tourists, visitors, maybe even potential homeowners, and you're going to let them put another warehouse in that doesn't have no character. It's already zoned for entertainment, right? So let them put in something nice, like a water park or something. I don't know. We got Gillette Stadium. In 2026, the World Cup's going to be here.
Think about that. Think of all the commerce we could bring here by having something that attracts people year-round instead of another freaking warehouse. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm sorry, just let Mr. Gallagher speak for 1 second. No, you stand there. He'll be done in a minute. He's a town official. He gets extra turns.
As soon as I have them, as soon as I got them, I'll put them up.
Hey.
So other people can talk in the audience as well. Chris?
I just want to address the water restrictions, and I did this a month ago with the selectmen. I know it's been frustrating, I live here too, so everything that happens through the DPW, whether it's water, school buses, roads, sidewalks, it all impacts me, my family, my kids, so I understand some of the frustration that's coming through. The water restrictions that are in place, 2 days a week watering, is not the DPW's fault. It's not a watering issue. We can pull water out of the ground. Mass DEP restricts how much we can use. And it's not just Foxborough. There are 65 towns in the state that have the same restrictions, if not more, than we have here in Foxborough. So it makes my skin crawl for somebody to come up and continue to shout about the water restrictions and blaming the DPW and the staff that we have here. You're yelling at the planning board who has nothing to do with it, which doesn't make sense to me. As a resident, they have nothing to do with the water. So I understand they're the ones that have special permit approval over projects like this, but the watering restrictions that are in place are never gonna go away. DEP will never remove those. They're gonna keep tagging every other town that goes to them for a new permit, for a new well, for a new source, for a new treatment plant, which we've done in this town. Those restrictions have been in place since 2008. They're not going anywhere. I'm sorry. Every year, it'll be 2 days per week watering. If there are droughts, there'll be 1 day. If there are severe droughts, there'll be no watering. Okay? We can pull water out of the ground. They're not letting us use it. It's not gonna change. So please, understand that. Stop blaming the water department for those restrictions. Stop blaming the town, because it's not us. It has nothing to do with building.
Excuse me, this woman's gonna have a chance to speak. You wait, please.
It has
You can
nothing
wait,
to
sir.
do with building. Okay? We have restrictions for how much water we can pull out of the ground. We have a daily max, we have an annual max, we have an average, we have a per capita for residential use. Those are the restrictions we have, those are the numbers we need to fall under every year. If we blow through them in 1 year, DEP says the restrictions are worse the next year. It has nothing to do with commercial use. It has nothing to do with more building. We can pull that water out of the ground and supply that water. So that's not, that's.
Sir?
Excuse me, you just have to wait, sir. This woman has a chance to talk before you. Excuse me? No, you cannot. When you get up, you can rebut, but you're not up. And you can't sit there and talk from your thing. And if you continue to do it, I'll ask Chief Grace to ask you to leave. Excuse me, which part of your English don't you understand, sir? Well, then if you understand, close your mouth until it's your turn. Because that is how this meeting is run, sir. It's not your meeting, it is my meeting. It is. I am the chairman of this board, and it is my meeting, and if you can't behave, Chief Grace will have you removed. Go right ahead. Ma'am, please.
Good evening. I'm Louise Sawyer.
Go closer to the microphone.
My name is Louise Sawyer. I live at 119 North Street. Hi. And I'm concerned about the number of parking spaces that the cargo that come back on the end of the tractor trailer is going to have, along with the tractor trailers idling. There's a lot of cargo carriers that run cooling. So if we have those idling 24/7, as good as your landscaping does in your projected 10-year plan, it doesn't mean squat. Because depending on the way the wind blows, I hear the guns go off at a touchdown, 30 seconds before you do on TV. Depending on the way the wind blows, you're going to hear everything. And unless you have a 30-foot wall like they do on the highways, those residents for 20 years are going to hear those trucks perpetually for 24 hours a day.
So why are you presuming that the trucks will be idling like all 24 hours a day?
Well, if they're disconnecting from the carriers and it's a refrigerated cargo, it's going to idle.
But only if we know that it's a refrigerated warehouse, correct?
Well, no.
We don't know.
The
We don't know
trailers-
what we
the trailers
don't
could-
know.
The trailers could be refrigerated.
So even 5 or 10 trucks idling,
Yeah.
it's quite loud. They hit their brakes, and it's quite loud. So the residents that you're abutting to by 100 and 150 feet, they're going to basically be living in that terminal with all the noise. Property values for those people are going to go down. Nobody's going to want to live. 50 years on North Street, I'm used to the stadium, but it's not in my backyard by
Right.
100 yards at least.
Thank you. Please. Yes, please.
What are you laughing at? Donna Penny, 14 Meadowview Rd. I have a bunch of concerns. We know that on Tucker Lane, there's ledge, so they're proposing to dig down. If they can't dig down, I still feel like there's no way they can project where that water's gonna go. You're saying it can't encroach us with the water. I still think it's gonna flood the drainage on Tucker, and behind Tucker, there's more wetlands that they're not accounting for. I don't feel like you should let them get their special permit to encroach upon wetlands. They're gonna be 60 feet from 30 feet from wetlands, when they're supposed to be 100. To put a parking lot, you're gonna disrupt the environment for a parking lot. There's no mention of noise barriers for the neighbors, like she just said. On Meadowview itself, they're gonna be right next to the neighbors. They're gonna be backup beepers. When the trucks unload, they bang into the loading docks. It's gonna be bang, beep, 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 bang, all night long. 65 times 2 in and out. They're gonna unload a truck and reload a truck and send it back on the road. I frequently walk Beach Street, and just Monday alone, a tractor trailer came flying down Beach. I was probably not even at the first house from North to Beach. It crossed over on the wrong side of the lane, like he had done it before, flying, because he can't make the turn. Then when he made the turn onto North, blocked both lanes of North. I have a picture, I'll send it to you, of a car coming, had to go on the wrong side of the road to get out of the truck's way so he could get up Beach so the truck could make the turn. One tractor trailer can't even make the turn onto North Street from Beach. So, and then they said they're gonna direct the traffic. Yeah, like somebody said that they're already driving over the pet hospital. You can see their trucks are already driving over that. There's nobody preventing that. And then if you stop them from going down Beach, they're just gonna go down Chestnut. We don't need 65 trucks interfering with our police and fire vehicles. Now they're gonna go down Chestnut to North. That's a safety issue for me. I need that fire truck there. I don't need it contending with an 18-wheeler. The 18-wheeler is not gonna be able to pull over on Chestnut. Now you're gonna send them to the Rotary? That Rotary, you already know, trucks are hitting the cones. They can't manage that circle. They're gonna be going, where are you gonna send them to there? From North Street to, they're just gonna be taking, and Meadowview has already come here about the stadium. People accidentally taking Meadowview instead of staying on Beach. There was a sign, it's long gone. We came and fought for a sign saying, stay on Beach, which is unfair to the beach people, but there's no way that he's gonna be able to direct traffic and tell traffic where to go. People don't read the signs. It just makes no sense. There's no way to protect us from all these dangers of these vehicles, the exhaust on these trucks. We can hear the MBTA train idles. It's not supposed to idle. It idles over at the yard over there. I know some of you can hear it. The truck, the freight train idles. Yep, it sits there idling. It's not supposed to. Nobody enforces that. The trucks, it's just crazy. North Street is too narrow. If you're taking your life into your own hands when you're going down North Street and there's a tractor trailer coming. It's just already too congested, too dangerous to have any more trucks introduced into this area.
Thank you.
Michelle Paluzzi, 4 Tucker Lane. There's, I have to believe, every time Attorney Spillane is asked who's going into this space, the answer has always been, nobody has signed yet in the past previous meetings. And I understand that legally you don't have to say anything, but I'm curious if anybody has applied to lease out this space at all. Because there's a lot of effort going on right now and a lot of unanswered questions for a maybe. Because we could approve, the planning board could approve everything right now, and yet you're telling us you have nobody in there. It could be an empty building. It could be just like every other warehouse on Route 1 right now, or the Mansfield Office Park, which is empty and dying for businesses to come in. So I want to share that I've been on some trucking GPS websites. They don't use Google Maps or, and every one of them, I've done it from southern states. I've done it from addresses in New Jersey. I've done it from Connecticut. I've done it from South Carolina, because a lot of the traffic impact study has shown businesses coming from the north. Every time I put in 2 Washington Street, the majority of routes have these truckers going 95 to Mechanic Street, down Beach Street. And I want to share something that happened today. I was heading south down Beach Street, because I live off of Tucker Lane, and a tractor trailer was heading north on Beach Street. It didn't have the attachment, it was just the box car part of it.
Tractor.
It couldn't be on its own side of the road. I got pushed into the little small bike lane. God forbid if there was a child there, my own son biking there, somebody walking a dog, it would have to become between me hitting this truck or me hitting a kid. And so this 7 p.m., even though I appreciate the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Restrictions right now, it doesn't do any good. That's a neighborhood, it's bus stops, it's bikers, it's everything. So I do also realize 2 Washington Street is a commercial property. Something is going to be built there someday. So I'm going to ask and request that the planning board consider items that they have done in the past when stepping up to the plate for the residences of this town. On your paperwork dated August 11, 2000, when Gillette Stadium was up, evergreens were to be planted on all abutting residential areas. So neighborhoods would have a visual buffer all year long, not the buffer that was being presented by Mr. Buckley, which was a couple of evergreens and some short trees here and there. And that's because evergreens only lose their leaves in the spring, but at that time you don't notice it because the other leaves are already sprouting. So it allows for a visual buffer all year long. In that same paperwork, to minimize the impact of lighting, or lighting trespass, as it was called in that paperwork, pole heights were lowered, and to reduce glare, wattages were lessened. I would hope that that would be made applicable to this site as well. Construction vehicles carrying materials or equipment deliveries could not employ local road systems. And that is something that obviously we're hoping can be enforced on Beach Street when those signs are back up. January 12, 2007, that was phase 2. That was when the Bass Pro Shops were being approached. All conditions needed to comply with the Department of Environmental Protection and the town noise ordinance. I am wondering what a 24/7 facility would mean to a town ordinance. I don't even know if we have what our town ordinance is. Shame on me for not checking that out. And all tractor trailer deliveries needed to utilize Route 1 and 495 unless they were local contractors. So I'm hoping some of those things can be applied if we go ahead with this project. Also, sound walls. Sound walls are extremely effective in larger projects. This, if you look at the plan site, basically the residents are an L. If you put sound walls there, at least it is buffering the noise. Also, I just want to make a statement regarding the traffic study. It was done, you said March 2022. That's the middle of a pandemic. The majority of people were still working from home, so I don't feel it's a fair representation of what the traffic might have been at that time. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Doherty. I live at 53 Beach Street, Foxborough. I just, we're going back and forth, but we really don't know what's going to be there. So I think if they have applicants, they should probably either let us know at least these are the 4 choices. And do they have to sign a lease for like how many years? I'm sure they're not going to sign a 1-year lease. So whoever's going to go in there, they're going to it's gonna be for a few years. So I think it's very important for us to kind of know what it's narrowed down to. Like, I don't think we could make any decision, 65 trucks in, 65 trucks out. What's that based on? Like who? Like, it's just, it's ridiculous how we're going back and forth without having any idea who the applicants are. You know, like I said, about 53 Beach Street, we have horses, my wife, kids, they like to go down the street on horses, you know, it's like a country little, I moved to this town from Stoughton in 2005, because it's a nice little country town, and it's just, you know, there's just no need for the 18 wheels. I know there's gonna be an occasional one, but if this goes in, there's just gonna be, you know, not just that particular building, but other tractor trailers are gonna follow. It's gonna bring in other, you know, it's just gonna be a cut through. That's all it's gonna turn into, not just from that building. You guys may just have whatever, you're 65 and whatever, and we don't know who's going in, but we know it's gonna be 65. But every other trucking place is just gonna cut it. It's too easy for them to cut across there. I mean, it's bad enough for me when I come home from work on a Friday night and there's a football game, whatever, but I want to take a right on the Beach Street to go home, and every car stops, has to, you know, talk to the police, because the police got to turn them around, and that takes like 2 minutes for them to explain to it, and I'm only 20 cars deep. I just did a 12-hour day. I'm starving, I'm hungry, and I got to sit there for an hour. You know, I see it, and I know what he's telling them, and I know what he's telling them, and it sucks.
I'm only
You know?
laughing because that's a riot, it's true.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, a concert, sometimes I'll forget, I'll be coming home and it's a concert, and it's like, shit, I can't get across Route 1. Now I'm coming from Norfolk, from painting the house, 12-hour day, I gotta go all the way down by Walnut, take a right, you know, it's just like.
But you know
We do
something,
know.
that's
We do.
just part of the drill, and we all know.
Right, and I accept that, but to throw this on top of this, you know, I don't wanna leave my house at 6 in the morning and pull up to Mechanic Street to take a left and have 3 tractor trailers in front of me, trying to get out, so I, you know, I mean, do I have to leave to, you know, work an hour early, and just, it's not the street for that, you know, and they can build a project and make the water, and thank God I don't live where these poor people live. I mean, that's just ruining their properties, but they can do whatever they want. Once that project's done, and they're all done being paid, and they're gonna be on to another project, and they're not gonna give a shit about any of us. It'll be done. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you. Chief Grace, I'm just curious, I know that we talked about traffic counts on Beach Street, and I know that we're going to do some recently. Do you have any information about that?
So I just want to be very clear that police department is not a traffic engineering company. We design our traffic studies to meet the residents' needs that people have complaints. And one thing that I've learned over many, many years is data speaks volumes. So we really want to make sure that we target areas that are really showing violations, and so we can place our resources in the right area. So when this little project came up, obviously, hey, what's going on in Beach Street? We have done studies in 2017, and I just got to grab some of my paperwork on some of this. And I'm just going to give you an idea of where we're at, and I'm going to compare it to another road just to give you a little bit of a flavor. So in the last week, we hit Beach Street to do a little bit of a traffic study. And when we do a traffic study, we make sure we don't put a police car out there to slow everybody down and alter it, okay? Because honestly, we've had those allegations against us. So in the last several days, since June 17th to June 23rd, Beach Street experienced 13,000 cars, okay? And believe it or not, it's 6,700 toward North Street, 6,300 towards Mechanic. So it's actually, you know, some of this data sometimes throws you for your loop because you think everything's going to North Street, but it's actually going both ways. In our parameters, we decide what's enforceable, what's unreasonable. Obviously, there's 3 different speed zones. So we hit the Willis Lane area. Obviously, we have some people here with some passion. We appreciate that. So we want to make sure that we target that area. So we did that same study, and I'm going to go back a little bit, several times in 2017, because there were allegations that everybody's getting killed on Beach Street. So I said, all right, we gotta respect people's concerns, because everybody has a perception about their own road, and it means a lot to them. And it's their road, it's their kids, so we take it very seriously. So in 2017, we did this study. This is before it was paved. Remember, everybody lost their tires on Beach Street? So we did that study over the course of 9 days. And within that study, we found out that the enforceable percentage of cars was only 3.7% of the cars were going over the enforceable percentage, which means that if the road is 35 miles an hour, I can tell you my police officers are not stopping cars doing 36. It is absolutely unreasonable, and I can tell you everybody in this room would be pissed off, okay? Okay? So only 3.7% of the vehicles were hitting our target range. So in these graphs, we have three different colors. We have a green, a yellow, and a red. A green means that that's a safe area, okay? If it starts hitting to the yellow, now we're on it. If it's red, that's where we allocate our resources. So that was in 2017, and we did it again. We wanted to follow up on it, okay? Which we did, and we waited about 6 months, and those numbers came in at 1.4% of all the cars traveling were only hitting our enforceable percentages. And that's after the road got paved, by the way, because there was talk, once it gets paved, it's going to be a runway and off we go. Didn't happen. Now let's bring us to last week. Again, 6,700 cars, 2015 a day are traveling on that road. It's a lot of cars, right? We're up a little bit. We're up to about 5.2%, okay, on the speed. It's a little higher. It's still in the green. It's still in the low areas. One of the things that we really look at is accidents, because we can say everybody's going fast. We can say there's a lot of problems, and we can feel that we're in fear. In the last 3 years, the accident data for Beach Street is only showing approximately 7 accidents, and that's including the 2 intersections on both ends. We average about 285 to 300 accidents in town a year, okay? Those are accident numbers, sir. I see you smirking. I can give you the numbers if you want. COVID was a savior to us because roads were down, but that's the accident numbers. We generate an accident number on not every single accident, anything what hits the parameters of personal injury over $1,500. So those numbers are generated in our CAD system, and I can show you the numbers. Wait, hold on. I'm going to roll here. Some of the accidents that get reported are not all motor vehicle accidents, car on car as well. So what we have is someone hit my mailbox, ran it over, I got a plate. Hit and runs, okay? Deer strikes. We have several of those. Those are accident numbers because they damage someone's car. So that's where we are. Right now, when we sit here today, that's what's happening on your street. But one really, really interesting piece of data, which I think you're going to enjoy, is where does your street compare to the other residents? Kind of important. Are you the dumping ground for all the cars cutting through? Everybody trying to get to Route 1. Are you that area? So if we take Mechanic Street, okay? Now, I will agree it's a little busier, okay? In that same window, this was over 6 days, 35,000 cars. That is doing 8,750 cars a day. 4 times the volume of Beach Street. Just to give you an idea when we talk about volume. So, okay, I agree. Someone would say, okay, you can't use Mechanic Street. That's not fair. I agree. So let's take Chestnut Street. Pretty comparable. In 6 days, they did 21,000. They're doing 3,583 cars a day by Kersey Road, which is almost, you're averaging 2,015. That's just to give you an idea where we're at. And when you take, and that road is only hitting the 0.6% of enforceable speed data. So that's capturing every single car going both directions, times, date as well. So we use this to do our enforcement. So when someone says a road's speeding, we're able to break down the flow of the traffic, the time of the violations, and obviously where we place the sensor, and we can capture it. So I think there was a question in there, Kevin. Honestly, I think I've gone high to the right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, I can tell you, this is not the traffic study that the town brings in and the engineers that can do a more dynamic, and I could spend a lot of time with this data and start moving it around to really break down if someone has a particular question. But this is just a baseline. So we do this on many, many streets in the town all the time, and we revisit them. Again, crash data is, that's a big one. When you're getting crushed on accidents and there's injuries, that's what we really have to start focusing on. So though everybody may feel that their road is like, the end of the world sometimes, the data is showing something slightly different, but I do not dismiss people's concerns. And I will say that though the part of the Patriot Place site plan approval was to work and make sure that the vendors going to that did not use Beach Street, I will agree with everybody in this room. We know that some of the trucks take that turn. We know it, okay? Obviously, we have a tool in place. Chris will get this up and running, so we have an enforceable ability for some of the day starting, and we'll get on that for you as well.
Thank you, Chief.
Wait. Was there a question? Or did I answer it?
How does it do that?
That's true. I was kind of prepared for that one too.
Don't do that.
So what I did is I did an analytics of every single, I did a 3-year window too. I just didn't take a month. So I did a 3-year window of what are the police interactions down there. And we had about 116 within the road involving vehicles. These included, now these are 16 kind of calls for service. We had a deer strike. The officers were down there doing some form of community policing. 2 disabled motor vehicles. We got 4 calls for an erratic operator. Someone falling behind someone traveling too fast. Remember, this is a 3-year window. We had a hit and run, 3 of those. 4 out of all the accidents, 4 of them reported some form of injury, the accidents. So 4 of the accidents in 3 years had injury. The other 4 did not. We had we had 21 police details during that window. I think when they were doing the water main. We had 9 road hazards. That could be anything from a turtle to a wire down. We had the speed trailer was deployed 4 times, directed patrols over 42 of them by the police department. That does not count the traffic grants. That's a separate call for service that is created separately for this. So that's one of the roads that when the state offers us a traffic grant. I'm sorry, I'm going too far.
I need to interrupt you only because we have about 12 minutes left before we have to leave.
I'm out.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was very informative. Sir, you were going to speak?
Yeah. Carl Condon, 188 Beach Street. This is more of questions for the police department and the highway department. Sorry.
I don't fit in the chairs, just to let you know. That's why I'm standing.
I live down at the narrow end of Beach Street. Does anyone know how wide that street is from side to side? No, it's not 20 feet. It's 18 feet wide. And can the highway department tell me if that line is painted correctly or incorrectly?
I have to look at it.
It should be a single painted line, meaning that to notify drivers that it's an extremely narrow road. Not that way.
How is it painted?
Double yellow. And it never was until they repaved it and they came down and paved it with 2 lines, which gives drivers a false
sense of being, of safety. So what's about the average width of a box truck tractor trailer? Exactly. Can two of them pass? Can a bus and a car pass? No. So, Beach Street, my end from Meadowview to North Street is a very narrow, unsafe section of street for trucks, buses, cars, pedestrians. And then when Kraft did his pedestrian safety, we couldn't have curbs on the street. Hence being, so if it's too wide of vehicles coming down, they can turn off and drive on the sidewalk to avoid an accident. Is that safe? Have you ever seen a sidewalk lower than the roadway without a curb or berm, anything?
Probably not. Well,
No.
except where I live, which has no sidewalks whatsoever.
Well, we used to not have sidewalks until Mr. Kraft came along, but anyways, that's a different story. But the sidewalks are unsafe, that end of the street's unsafe. So I think you should strongly oppose this application to this warehouse, and I'd rather see some sort of entertainment go in. Especially them not knowing who it is. And I don't know if the chief did any studies down on that narrow end of Beach Street, but a few weeks ago, we were out in my yard, car comes flying up the street, all of a sudden we hear, smash, hits the pole right at Meadowview and takes off. He was doing probably, what, 50 by the time he passed my house from North Street? You should do a study down on that, and I'll gladly let you sit in my driveways. I got 3 driveways you can sit in. Take your traffic studies and look at the speeds that come up and down. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
First of all, I want to apologize, Kevin, for my
It's
behavior
okay.
tonight.
I
Sorry.
understand. Just state your name for the record.
Johnny Gattani, 7 Willis Lane.
Thank you.
This goes back a long time, 2001, when the road got redone on Beach Street. The no-through trucking sign went up for about a month, disappeared, never came back, and it all started from then. And I've witnessed it many, many a time, speeding. I told Chief Grace the other day, I was almost killed twice. The morning of June 9th, when we had our last meeting, 5:30 in the morning coming out of Willis, nobody coming either way. Car comes around from the mechanic side, had to be doing 65, 5:30 in the morning. 30's coming into my driver's door. That's what set me off. That's, then the meeting that night. This truck, this warehouse stuff, these trucks are going to get lost in town. They're going to congest the town. It's going to turn into a rest stop for truckers. Nothing against truckers. We need them. We love the guys. But we got to think twice about our town and our safety. I come here in 79, 80. This was a nice, beautiful country town. I grew up at Sprague Street in Dedham. I got away from the trucks. My bedroom window was here, and Chief Grace was where the trucks were. Vibration cracks in the house, destroyed the plaster, destroyed the foundations on the street. Nobody could sell their house unless they took a major deduction. But I'm more concerned about safety now, as people have spoken about kids being walked by their mothers, nanas, grandmothers, whatever, kids on their bikes, joggers. I'm already sick now. I told my wife, don't go on Beach Street. Go all the way down Meadow View or go up to the estates by the reservoir. Don't walk on Beach Street. It's too close. 18-wheelers, I could still hear the noise as a kid. Though I could still see the wheels 5 feet away from me on Sprague Street. But we grew up with it. We didn't think of it. Now, it's a different era now. It's just not right, Kevin. It's not right. Like I say, we got $1 billion corporation, the Patriots Uptown. Let's put a nice hotel in there, theme park. There's nothing around there. People come to Foxboro. My friends come from out of state. Johnny, where do I stay? Well, you're better off going down to Providence or going in the city. Or you go down to Norwood to the Four Seasons or something. There's nothing around Foxboro we got to offer, but a beautiful hotel. You should think about that, Sean. Is it Sean? Mr. Adams?
Jason.
Jason, I'm sorry. What'd you think about that? That'd be a perfect spot for it. You don't even know who's going in there, but at least you know who's going to go in there. Deal with Hilton or something. Put a theme park in there. Let's get attraction to Foxboro. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Paolini. I'm 22 Meadowview Rd. I'm direct abutter to this project that's being proposed. I just want to agree with a lot of people here as to how, like, what this meeting is about if we don't know what's going into this warehouse. How can you tell me as a direct abutter that the noise isn't going to bother me, that the lights aren't going to bother me, that there's not going to be trucks 24/7 when we don't know what's going in there? So until we know what's going in there or what's happening, I just don't see what the purpose of this is when you can't tell us who is going in there, what's going to be happening. Now, I don't know if you can answer this, I'm sorry, I should ask you. Does this applicant, have they done this before? Are there any other projects like this that they have done that you can kind of compare this to, that you can tell us who the tenants of that space that they own is at this time?
You're welcome to answer that question if any of you know.
We can get that information for the next meeting.
Okay.
That would be great, just to know what we're kind of up against. And then for noise, have you guys done a noise study for this? I didn't hear anything mentioned about noise study. Can we not do a noise study because you don't know what's going in there? Again, I'm a direct abutter. I'm very nervous that at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm gonna have lights in my backyard or trucks backing up. I work in the morning, I have to be up, that's not fair. That's
Those
all
are all
I got.
legitimate. Thank you. This gentleman will be the last comment for the evening, but feel free, sir. No pressure, yeah.
Dan Hamilton, 6 Willis Lane. You always want to give your address right before you dispute what the chief might have had to say. But I was amazed that we only have 1/4 of the traffic on Beach Street as we do on Mechanic, right? That I think was kind of presented in one way. But the fact that we have 25% of the traffic of one of the largest roads in Foxboro kind of blew me away. And then the comparison to Chestnut. A lot more streets off of Chestnut, it's a longer road, so I'm not sure that's really an apples-to-apples comparison. There aren't that many houses on Beach Street, really aren't. So I mean, I felt like those numbers were high, and I think that speaks to the amount of traffic going back and forth. For the Meadow View folks, you should be nervous. I live on Willis. That warehouse, it's like Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase lighting up the... And it really is 24/7. That part's depressing. I guess the last thing I'll say, if I'm the last person to speak, is what do we want to be as a town? It's come see our warehouse. Like let's be better. Let's be better, right?
Thank you. Yeah, we need a motion to continue.
Motion to continue the public hearing until,
You know the date?
The 14th.
I'm trying to look at both of them.
July 14th or August 11th?
July 14th or August 11th.
July 14th.
At,
Are we doing Easter?
What's that?
we're going to have to make arrangements to do it here.
You think? I think people will be civil enough to do it back.
We know this room's available as long as the chairs are still here.
I'm sorry, what?
The chairs are being redone, so as of now, the space is available here, but they don't know when the chairs are gonna disappear, so.
So can we set?
But we can continue it for here.
Let's continue it for here. There is a chance that it could need to be moved. it'll be posted just like we posted it.
Yeah, we'd do it all over again if
We'll
we
do
had
it,
to.
like, you'll know, it'll be on the website. So what time? 7:45, Frank? 7:45 on July 14th.
Second. All those
Here.
in favor?
Aye.
Something more you want to say?
No.
No, I was saying here.
Here.
Just- yeah.
Okay to hear.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah. Is there anything else we need to say?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See you back on the 14th.